Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome to my channel. My name is Caleb and this is your video series on Oracle Apex. So if you're new to Apex, this is the series for you because we're going to give you everything you need to know to start building applications. So you might be wondering, what is Apex? Well, Apex stands for Application Express. So Apex allows us to build applications very quickly because it's what's known as a low-code development environment. So what low code means is that we can still build applications, but a lot of the actual programming is abstracted away from us. We just have to worry about components and different pages and how to piece everything together. So Apex is going to make our lives a lot easier to make data-driven applications, even if you don't know how to code. Now it is low code, not no code. So if you need to do some customization or do something very specific, then you have the capability to throw your own code in there and customize your applications. Now, if you've been around on this channel long enough, you might know that I did an Oracle SQL tutorial series. Apex is your natural next step because we're going to be using the Oracle database to build these data-driven applications. So you have data in these tables inside of your database, and you want to build a pretty scalable web application to basically be the user interface to this data. This is where Apex is going to come in because we can easily throw our data in there and we can do analytics on it, make some pretty charts, create some dashboards, and basically create a CRUD application. So if you've never heard of CRUD, this is an acronym that's short for Create, Read, Update, Delete. And it basically encompasses all of the things you might want to do with a database. You might want to create data, you might want to read data, you might want to update data, and you might want to delete data. It's often very handy if we have an application that allows us to do this rather than working with the database directly. So if you're a developer or a business person, Apex can come in handy because it allows us to easily create applications, but you don't have to worry about all the necessary code just to get the application up and running. So we're basically able to shift our focus from the technical programming to solving a business problem, which is ultimately what the purpose of software is for. It's to solve business problems. So I mentioned that a potential use case for Apex was to create CRUD applications, but people have built all kinds of different applications with Apex. So if you want to see this, you can check out builtwithapex.com. This is basically a showcase page of various applications that were built using Apex. You can also check out the Apex website where they're going to give you documentation, guides, etc. And hopefully one day I'll get this video series up on that webpage. Guess we'll just have to see. So to understand where Apex fits in, let's do a little bit of a comparison. So if you were to create a blogging website, you might try to go for a tool such as WordPress or Joomla or Drupal, a content management system that basically allows you to create content very easily. These content management systems are basically the infrastructure for your blogging website. Well, Apex is very similar in nature in that it gives you that infrastructure, but Apex is really focused on data-driven applications. So like I said, CRUD applications or anything more complex if you want to do some data analytics and so forth. Now, I'm sure ultimately anything is possible, so if you want to create a blogging platform, I'm sure that's possible with Apex, but what we're going to be focusing on in this series is how to create applications that work with data tables. To start this series, we're going to talk about some of the pre-built applications that Apex has available to us. So these allow us to do two things. One, some of these apps are productivity apps, so you can use them to keep track of bugs or to have to-do lists or whatever it might be. So there's a bunch of productivity apps. And the second thing these apps allow us to do is to see what's possible with Apex and use them as examples for creating our own applications. Then what we're going to do is we're going to move into creating an application from a file, so you can take a spreadsheet, for example, and you can turn that into a web application. Then we're going to go into the database side of it a little bit and talk about something known as Quick SQL. So this is a feature that allows us to quickly create the SQL or SQL to create tables inside of the database. I think you'll like this feature even if you've never worked with databases, or if you're a SQL pro, this is a really cool tool and it's going to make your lives a lot easier. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create an application using those tables we create, spice it up by changing the themes, talk a little bit about user authentication, and all kinds of other sweet stuff. So this series is going to be really awesome, and you definitely want to subscribe and watch the whole thing. So in order for you to best follow along with the series, you actually need to go through the examples we're doing. So if you're new to Apex, go sign up for a workspace. It should only take you a minute, and there's no credit card info or any other junk like that. You should be able to just sign up and start creating applications. Throughout the series, if you have any questions or comments, please be sure to leave them in the comments section below each video, where I can address your guys' needs or think of some different content to create for future Apex videos. So I'm pumped. I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited to go through these videos, and I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So please be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Hopefully you guys are excited to start using Apex. Go to apex.oracle.com and click Get Started for free. That's how you will get started, in case you couldn't figure that out. And then click Request a free workspace. Now all you have to do is fill out the information here, answer a couple survey questions. There shouldn't be any credit card information required, so it should be pretty easy to get started. And you'll get a confirmation email pretty much instantly. So I'm going to fill this out. I'm going to go with Awesome Workspace, and this is going to allow us to use Apex in the cloud, so we don't have to download anything. Now, once you get to this page, you're going to be sent an email where you will have to confirm your workspace and set your password. Here's where we're going to set our password, apply the changes, and there you go. This is the home page for Apex. Now, there is a lot of buttons, so let me just tell you what you need to know. Inside the app builder, you're going to have the option to create a new application, and that's what we're going to be focusing on first. And there's essentially 3 different ways to create an application. You can create one from scratch. We'll be getting into that later. You can create one from a file. So if you have a spreadsheet, for example, you can click this. And then lastly, you can go to this third option, which is to install a productivity app. So this is basically a collection of different apps you and your team can use for productivity. And there's also some sample apps you can use if you want to see how certain things are done, if you want to implement certain things like that inside of your own applications. So this is where I'm going to start, just so you guys can easily see what is possible with Apex. So click the productivity app and we're going to see what we got here. So productivity and then sample. Again, productivity, these are things you can use for your actual productivity for your team, your development. And then sample is just where you can get some essentially what would be the equivalent of code samples for Apex. So as an example, if you need to know how to do a REST service, you can check that out. Or if you want to know how to do a calendar, here's a sample calendar you can build off of, and so forth. We're going to start with a sample database application because I imagine that's what a lot of you guys are going to want to do. You have some database and you basically want to create a user interface to be on top of this database. So here's how you would do that. Click Install App, click Next, and install. Once that's done, it'll say application installed, and you can click this little play button to run it, or you can click the manage button to see how it looks behind the scenes. Let's start by running the application. And here you're going to use your Apex credentials to sign in. So this is just a sample application you could create if you were trying to create an application for customers, products, and all kinds of other stuff in here. And essentially you can create dashboards to give you an overview of the information, or what you can do is you can drill into any particular information you're interested in, such as customer information, and you can get that data here. There's all kinds of different capabilities by clicking this drop-down actions. You can see that you can go through here and add filters, or you can decide what columns you're interested in. So if you want to get rid of a particular column, you can do that here. So for example, we can get rid of the address and just have the postal code. And there you go. Now you have the customer name, the postal code, and some tags. This application basically did the same thing for products, but in this case, it's actually displaying an image. So if you want to know how to do something similar, you can go and look at how this page was built. Now, if you go into orders, so here you can see that we have the customer information for any of these orders, and then you can get what items were actually purchased by clicking the order number over on the left. And here is a list, and this allows you to see how related data can be displayed in an organized way. So cool. In this case, this guy bought a shirt, jacket, and some trousers. All right, and the next thing I want to show you guys here is the reports. Here you can get an example of reporting that you can do inside of Apex. You can pick any of these that spark your interest. I'm going to go with sales by month. That sounds fun. And you can see we have a really good trend line in our sales. Scrolling down, you can also see that we can have a bar version, which shows the different categories of things we're selling. So we have men's, women's, and accessories, and then it's split out by month. So that's one example of reporting you can do, but there's all kinds of different capabilities. We can go by sales by state. Here it's going to break things out by state and show you which ones are doing best. These are just some of the different capabilities with Apex. And what we're going to be doing in this series is learning a little bit more of the capabilities and how to set some of this stuff up ourselves. Last thing I want to call out is that there is this bar down at the bottom with different capabilities. This is basically how we can edit a particular page. You can click edit page, or what you can do is click this quick edit, which will allow you to select something on the page. Now in this situation, there's not a whole lot to click, but if we were on a page such as the home page with a little bit more options,
Then when we click quick edit, there are a lot more options to click, so we could go into this top products, and that's going to take us to the back end and show us a little bit more how that's made. And yeah, this is a lot, so we're not going to talk about all this in this video. All I wanted to show you guys in this video is how to set up a sample application, just to get a little better view of what's possible with Apex and get a little bit more practice with working with the applications. In the upcoming videos, we're going to be breaking down what all this stuff means and a little bit more of the capabilities with Apex. So if you've enjoyed the content, please be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to your Apex tutorial series. Now, following the previous video, I showed you how to install a sample application. In this video, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what goes on when you create one of these applications. So right now, currently, we are looking at the page designer. This is where you're going to basically determine the layout of a particular page and of your application. Now, we are going to save all the details for this for a little bit later, just because I want to look a little bit more at the big picture before we dive into the details. So let's just look at how the application is set up and how you're going to best work with this application. So the main pieces you need to understand is, one, the actual application itself. So that's what we're looking at. Then you have the page designer, which is right here, and you can get to that by editing a page. So you can click edit page 1, or you can click quick edit and select a particular piece of the page, and that's going to bring you to the page designer. So to repeat, we have the presentation, and then behind the scenes, here's how the presentation is made. There's actually one more piece I wanted to share with you guys though, and that's actually visible inside of the SQL workshop by clicking this tab at the top. This is the data layer. So this is the tables that are needed and used for this application to work. So you can see demo underscore blah blah blah. All those were created automatically for us when we created this application. So these tables is where all the data is stored for these charts and tables inside of the presentation. So you can go into the SQL workshop, open a table that you're interested in. So for example, we can go into the demo orders, and when it's done loading, it'll look a little bit something like this. If you're having any issues with it showing up, just go ahead and click this refresh button and select it again. But once you got it ready and it's showing, you can go in here and look at the data. You can look at the table structure, indexes, and all that other good stuff. But we're going to look at the data. That's what I want to care about. And here you can see the orders. You have an order ID, a customer ID, which this is associated to any particular customer in the customer table. We have an order total, a timestamp, and some other stuff. So that's where you can see some of the data. Going back to our application, if we go into orders, this data comes from that table. So as an example, the first order on here is Bradley Eugene, and the last order on here is Bradley Eugene. Looking at the object browser, you can see that we have the customer ID of 7, and then down here we have the customer ID of 7. So the database application did the join for us and presented the data in a nice, easy to view way. Alright, so that's enough with this application for now. Let's X out of that and go back to the app builder. Here's where the application can be found again. Once you click App Builder, it'll show up here in your applications, and you can edit it or you can run it. But what I want to do is I want to actually install another application. So if we want to install a sample application, you can do that two ways. The first way we did is we went to Create and then Productivity App. That's going to bring you to this page, which is the same exact way as clicking this app gallery at the top. Whichever way you prefer, that's totally fine. Once we're here, we can choose productivity, because in the previous example, I did a sample application. Now I'm going to do a productivity application, because these are a little bit different, and I'll explain why. Well, the primary reason is that these are complete applications designed to be used for your actual productivity. So you can use them for that reason, or you can also use them for a learning experience if you need to know how a particular piece of an application is built. So, as an example, let's go through this live poll, and we're going to click Install App. Then click Next, and Install. Alright, our application is installed, and what I want to do before clicking Play or Manage, I want to go back to the App Builder and show you that this is going to appear down here with your other applications. Now, one thing I want you to notice is that if you hover over it, there's actually a lock here rather than an edit symbol. So what's the deal with that? Well, these productivity applications are complete applications supported by Oracle, and they're ready to go. if you want to actually edit these applications, you're essentially branching off the application and they no longer have the same level of support. So if you want to make changes to this application, that's fine. Just realize the application will then be yours. It's no different than if you were to clone a repository and make changes to somebody's code. They're not going to then assume that code is part of the original application. So if you want to change it, you can open it, click it, and then just click manage, and you're going to have this option to unlock. Then you get some extra information here, so ineligible for future upgrades, etc. Unlock application. And now when we go back to the app builder, you can see we have that edit button. So there you go. Here's how you can see how the application was built. Here, each one of these is a page of the application. So if you want to go in there, tinker around, open one, and you're going to get the layout view where you can do the page designing. Eventually you'll have your polls ready and you can send them to people and get results. Main thing is you understand how to create the application and how to unlock it if you like. So I'd encourage you to go back to the app gallery, look through the productivity apps, and see if there's anything that you might find useful just to get a little bit more practice. So that's all I got for you guys in this video. Please be sure to subscribe if you've enjoyed this content. There's a lot more coming and I'm super excited, so yeah. See you in the next video where we're going to be talking about how to install an application from a file. So that's going to be pretty cool. So we're going to start in the app builder. Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to your Oracle Apex tutorial series. So far in this series, we talked about creating sample applications as well as a productivity app. We talked a little bit about how the pieces fit together. But now I want to talk about how to create an application from a file, which might be useful for you guys if you're working with a spreadsheet or something like that. So what you're going to do is click create. Oh my golly, Claire is back at it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an application and click from a file. Now here is where you can choose a file, or you can click copy and paste if you want to paste the data in there. Now, fortunately, we don't actually have to have any data prepared because there's some sample data we can use. So for example, click project and tasks. That's a hard word to say, tasks, and click next. So you can see the structure of the data. We have a project, a task name, start date, and so forth. So you can see the columns, and this automatically will parse the data to try to figure out the data types for the columns. Now what we can do is we can give this a table name, and we will call this tasks to condemn ourselves to forever trying to pronounce our table names. And we'll just leave that error table name blank, and it should fill it out for us, tasks_error. And there you go, created 73 rows. And now we can either view the table or we can continue to create the application wizard. So when you click this continue, what it's going to do is it's going to create a new application, and this is the new application page, and what it's going to do is it's going to create a page for us that lists the tasks. Also on this page is this features section. These are things that are for the application as a whole and are not on a page by page basis. So what we're going to do is we're just going to check all just to make sure we have all of those. Scrolling down, you can see some extra settings and junk. We're just going to click create application. Oh, we should probably give it a name. We'll just call it tasks, create application. So later on, we'll go back and talk a little bit more about creating an application and all those different options on there. But for now, I just really want to focus on creating an application from a file, and pretty much everything is already done for us, so we don't need to worry about too much. So you can see all of these pages were generated for us, lots of different stuff. A lot of these come from those different settings that we checked. So for example, we have a login page and so forth. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to run the application. Now sign in with your Apex credentials. This will be the same account you created when you signed up for apex.oracle.com. And here's our application. Over here on the left, we have a menu with the tasks. We can click that and we can see all of our data. So this is really cool, and right out of the box we can start working with our data. So for example, we could filter our data to specifically grab any of these with the status of open. So to do that, you can click on status in the column header and select open, and there you go. So it's really easy to filter through the data just by clicking any of these column headers. So what we can do now is we can go into the actions and click chart, so we can chart some of this data. I'm going to go with a pie chart because I'm starving right now. We're in the label, we're going to select status, and then for the value, we're going to click cost. So basically what it's going to do is we're going to group
the statuses by open, closed, and then we're going to sum up all of the costs to see which ones cost the most. So what we can do is we can click sum, and then we can click apply. So right now it only shows one color, and the reason that is because the report is filtered. So we selected status being open earlier when we selected the column header. We can see all of the other statuses by unchecking this filter. And there you go. So you can see open consists of almost 50%. So that is the basics of interactive reports. Obviously we could go into a lot more detail, but my main goal here was just to show you that we can easily create an application from a file and start working with the data. So those are just some of the capabilities you can do with an interactive report. This is just out of the box default for when we create an application from a file, but the sky is the limit, and it's ultimately up to how much customization you'd like to do and what capabilities you need. But following this video, you can see that you can easily import data, and within a minute you can start tinkering with it, creating charts, and all that good stuff. Now if you want to edit any of this stuff, just click Edit Page 2. That's going to bring you to the page designer. And you can see over here on the right, we are working with an interactive report, but there's all kinds of different stuff you can use, and we're going to get into some of that stuff in this series, so hopefully you guys are pumped. That's all I got for you guys in this video. Please be sure to check out the next video, and don't forget to subscribe. Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to your Oracle Apex tutorial series. What are we going to be doing in this video? Well, so far we talked about all these different ways to create applications. We did sample apps, we did productivity apps, we did apps from a file, and the next logical thing would be to create an application from scratch. But there's one problem. So if we go and create a new application, usually the types of applications we're going to create need some data sources. So we're going to have database tables where we have our data, and then we can create applications to work with that data. But I'm not quite ready to get into creating tables. I do want to get into that really soon, but first I think it would be more appropriate to start with an application we already have created with some sample data, and then what I want to do is I want to learn how to work with the page layouts, how to edit the pages, and then once we got all that figured out, go back, create a new application, create some data, and so forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the app builder, and we are going to work with this task application. Now, if you're just jumping in and you don't have this already created, all you got to do is click create from a file, copy and paste, and then choose projects and tasks, and then click next and build the application as the default. Very simple to get it going. Once you got the application created, go back, and what we can do is we can click edit. So here is where most of your work is going to take place. Once you understand how to work with an application, creating a new one from scratch is really simple. So sometimes it's a little hard to go and decide which one of these to click on because it's not very visual. So if you want to see the application, you can click this play button up in the top right corner, and this is what you're going to see. And then you can find a thing that you want to edit, and all you have to do is click edit page, whatever number it is, or you can click quick edit and select a particular piece on the page. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to the tasks page on the left-hand side on this hamburger menu thing, and what we're going to do is we're just going to edit this page. So this is page 2, and that shows up here on the top right in this drop arrow mover thing. Now there's a lot going on here, and I'm going to try and break it down, but we're not going to have everything figured out by the end of this video, and that's okay. The main thing is I want you to understand the basics on working with pages. So the layout is the main thing. This is where the position of everything is on the page. And you'll see all these different items, and when you click them, it doesn't really do anything. So I'm going to explain what those are, what they're for, and how to use them. Below the layout, we have these widgets down here. So we have regions, we have items, and we have buttons. Over on the left-hand side, we have a structural representation of your page. So what you can do is you can condense these pieces and open them back up when you need them. This is where we can find any particular piece we want to work with. So for example, inside of the content body, we have the tasks here. Then over here on the right, we have the different properties for this piece that we've clicked over here on the left. Now there's also some other buttons over here on the left. For example, we have dynamic actions that we can do. So this is basically the ability to create client-side behavior without the need for programming JavaScript ourselves. So now let's talk about this layout. We have all these things here, and what these refer to are positions. So what we can do is we can take one of these components from the bottom and we can drag it and choose a position to put it in. The buttons category, all these icons and such, can go in any of these positions such as previous, close, delete, help, and so forth. Each component has its own template for different locations that buttons can go. So for example, the tasks component, which is an interactive report, has different positions available than a breadcrumb. Regions, on the other hand, can't fit in all of these little positions. They have to fit in the larger positions. So for example, we could take static content, we can drag it, and you can see we can't drop it in each one of these little squares. We have to choose a larger position. So a region can go in any of the main positions, or it can go in a subregion inside of another component. So to show this, let's go into tasks and drop it in the subregion, and we should see that it appears inside of the subregion. It also appears over here on the left, and we can see the properties on the right. So we can just make this nice and simple, have a text and just say hello world, and what we can do is click save, go give our page a refresh and see if we can see it. And there you go, it's right there, hello world. It also has the title new, so that comes from this property here. We could give it whatever we want. Very professional name there. Give it a save and do a refresh, and you can see it there. Scrolling through this, you can see that there are a ton of different properties, and learning the different capabilities will come with time. I don't know all of them. I'm not going to pretend to know all of them, but you can go in here and do essentially anything you need inside of these properties. So now that we understand the basics, what I want to do is I want to look at a sample app and see how they might have put things together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our app builder, and we're going to select this sample database application, which I got from the app gallery under sample apps, and we're just going to edit it. I'm also going to run this, get rid of tasks up here, and sign in. And the thing that interests me the most is the orders. So when you open the orders, we have this nice table here, but we also have these buttons over here on the left. How would we do something like that? Well, let's find out. What we can do is we can click any of these buttons down here, or we can go over here and just open the appropriate page. What piece are we looking for? We're looking for this orders. And you can see this is the query that is used to generate this table. But that's not what I'm concerned about. I'm specifically interested in this order number. So over on the left, we can expand the columns and we can see order number. And then over on the right, we get the properties for that. So looking at the column name, we have order number, and you can see the type is link. So when link is selected, we have this box down here, which gives us some options for what this link is supposed to do. And I was tinkering around with this and I messed it up. And if that ever happens to you guys, you can click this undo button up here. You can see the target for this is page 29. Well, what is page 29? If we go back to our application, and I have this open in a new tab, and we can look at page 29. This is actually the order details, and you can see it has the order ID, the customer info, the timestamp, and all that good stuff. So to see what this might look like, we can go back to our application and click one of these orders, and it'll look just like this. So using this sample data application, it allows us to see how things are pieced together. We basically have a series of nested components. These components can have smaller components such as buttons, or it can have larger components by putting them in the subregions. And then all these components have properties which we can use to determine what happens when something's clicked, or how something appears, and so forth. Now here's a documentation page I would recommend. You can go to the App Builder User's Guide for Application Express, and we're looking at section 8, which talks about all about the different pieces of the page designer and how to use it. So for example, we can say using page designer, and we can talk about accessing the property editor or adding a region, item, whatever we want to do. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this video was nice and helpful. I appreciate you guys watching the series. If you've enjoyed it, click subscribe, and in the next video, I'm hoping to start talking a little bit about some SQL or SQL. Oracle makes that super easy for us with the quick SQL option, so it's gonna be fun. I'll see you guys then. Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back. This video, we are going to be talking about the SQL Workshop, or SQL. However you want to pronounce it, doesn't really matter. The main thing is we want to create some data and get started working with the data layer. So what we're going to do is go to the SQL Workshop,
And in here, you're going to see some recently created tables. Again, these tables are from the applications that we have created using the app gallery and from a file. But you may get to the point where you want to create some of your own tables and start working with some of your own data. So over the next couple videos, I'm going to be talking about what you need to know to start working with data inside of Apex. And I'm also going to be teaching a little bit about some of the database fundamentals. And it should be pretty fun. So I'm excited, hopefully you guys are, and now let's just get started with the object browser. Alright, so this is where a bunch of junk comes up, and this is where you can view any data for a particular table. So for example, we can look at orders, and you'll get information about the table. So if you don't have a foundation in relational databases, that's fine. You can still use Apex, you can still create awesome applications. In fact, one of the benefits of using Apex is that a lot of this stuff is abstracted away from you, so you don't have to know all of the details. But it is good to have a pretty basic understanding. So basically, inside of databases, everything is structured inside of tables. And tables are split up into columns, and they have a bunch of rows. So looking at the data, you can see these columns here, and each one of these is known as a row. So it looks like we're showing 10 rows here. In addition to tables, you can also have views. So going into this dropdown, you can select views, and views are essentially a new view of the data. So we might combine tables, or we might change the way, it actually doesn't look like we have any views here, but we're going to create some views probably in the future, so it is good to know that they exist. Again, views just allow you to look at the data in a different way. Alright, now let's go click this arrow to go back to the SQL Workshop and look around and see what else there is. The next thing on here is the SQL commands button. Here you can put SQL in directly if you know that. Just as an example, you can say select 5 plus 5 from, and then say dual, D-U-A-L, and then click run, and that'll give you the result down here, 10. You can also select from tables, so you can say select star, which will grab all of the columns from, I think the table was named tasks, and then run, and you can see we can get the data this way. If you create a query that you really like, you can click save, give it a cool name, save it, and this is going to show up in the saved SQL section where you can see some of your favorite queries. Alright, now let's go back. Next thing I want to show you is the utilities, and here is a lot of useful information. The first thing I want to show you is the sample data sets. So if you want to basically start with some data and then build an application from this data, you can do that here. So here are some different samples, and you can just click install if you're interested in doing that. We're actually going to create some data ourselves, so we're going to skip this, but this is a great place to start if you're interested. So let's go back to the utilities, and the next thing I wanted to point out on here is Quick SQL. So what is this exactly? Quick SQL allows us to create SQL, or SQL, I keep switching the way I'm saying it, but I don't think it really matters. Basically, like the name would imply, it allows us to create SQL very quickly. So for example, I can create a table in here by just saying users and typing in some columns, and look at all this SQL. Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back. This video, we're going to be talking about how to use Quick SQL to build out a data structure inside of Apex. Super easy, and it should be a lot of fun. But first, let's talk a little bit more about the purpose of Quick SQL, besides making SQL quick. When would you want to use this? Well, if we first go back to the SQL Workshop, you can actually create tables over here on the right under Create Object. You can select Table, and you can go through these menu options, put your columns and your types, and go through each step, and then you'll have a table. And that works. If you don't have any experience and you need to get a table made from scratch, this might be the way for you. But honestly, this can be a lot of added work when you have to create numerous tables and you have to go through all of these steps for every single one. Not to mention, you might need to know a little bit more about the data types and so forth. So what's the other option? Well, the other option is to type in the SQL directly. So if you know the SQL code to create the tables you need, you can do that here. But this requires a lot of knowledge on SQL and how to design different relationships across tables. So if you don't have the knowledge to do the SQL directly, or you just don't feel like putting forth the effort, then Quick SQL is for you. So to find it, you can go to the SQL Workshop, and then Utilities, and then you go into Quick SQL. Now, if you're first getting started, what you can do is you can click Samples, and you can see what something might look like. So what we'll do is we'll go to this employee skills and we'll load it. So what is going on here essentially? Well, this is basically describing a company. We have departments, we have employees, and these employees have skills. And you can see over on the right the SQL that is created from this. Basically, we create a table, we define the column, and the data type and any other attributes with it as well. And over on the left is the shorthand way to do it, where you just put the column and occasionally you will put a data type. So you can look at these samples to get a little bit of practice seeing how it would be done, or what you can do is you can follow along with this awesome video, and I'm gonna go through an example with you guys. So let's X out of this, let's get rid of this junk, and let's start fresh. So what I want to do is I want to model an application for books. So these books are going to have a title, they're going to have an ISBN, and they're going to be authored by a sequence of people. So it might look something like this. You type out books, press enter, and then you tab over and start putting the columns. So for example, we can have a title, an ISBN, and you can see on the right, this is generated, even an ID column is created for us. The appropriate data type is selected, and even if we do something such as publication date, it's intelligent enough to know that we're trying to have a date here. Now for the 4,000, this basically means that's the maximum size. That might be a bit much. I don't know of any books that are 4,000 characters long, but you can shorten it by saying VC255, which is going to make it varchar 255 maximum. Then what you do is you can click generate SQL. You will need to click this button if you're not pressing enter. So when you press enter, it'll update for you, but sometimes you don't want to do that. And in that case, you can just click the button. Now books can have authors. So what we can do is say authors, and what we're going to do is we're going to tab over again, and this is going to create another table for the authors. So we can say first name, last name, and you can see in this situation, I put a space and it's automatically going to put an underscore. If you want to manually put in the underscore, that's fine as well. Now with this structure, a book is allowed to have many authors because that author is stored in a different table with a reference back to book ID. This protects our data integrity. Now if you're new to this, the next statement you can probably just ignore for now, but I'm just going to throw something out there. If you would prefer not to have repeating author names across books and would prefer those to be references, you can do that, and you would essentially need to design this as a many-to-many relationship. I have other videos on this, but essentially what you would need to do is you need to create another table such as book authors, and inside of here you're going to have a book ID and an author ID. And then you can go create an author table which will be referenced by this. And then the combination of these would be the primary key. So yeah, again, going into the grain a little bit here. In this situation, I'm not really going to worry about any data redundancy. I'm just going to have the authors in a separate table, so that way we can have numerous authors. So if we take a look at this, we have the books here, and then we have the authors here. The book ID in the authors table can be repeated because there might be 10 authors for a single book, and in that situation, we would have 10 rows with the same book ID, each one with a different first name, last name. Essentially, one book can have many authors. So that is your introduction to QuickSQL. What we're going to be doing in the next video is we're going to be finishing out this script. We're going to add a little bit more and talk a bit more about the capabilities, and we're going to create a view as well. So it's going to be pretty exciting. Please be sure to check out the video and don't forget to subscribe. Peace out. Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back. This video, we're going to be talking about QuickSQL Part 2. So the previous video gave you that foundation, and now we're going to go in a little bit more depth, learn some of the other capabilities. Now, fortunately, a lot of these capabilities are really easy to find inside of this help menu. So two things I wanted to call out, well, besides the data types, which we talked about in the previous video, go check that out. We want to talk about the table directives and the column directives. So let's first look at the table directives. These are things you can put after your table to basically do something for us. And one we are going to use is this insert. So this is going to insert some random data inside of the table. Why are we going to do that exactly? Why would we want to put a bunch of junk in there? Well, mainly because we're just working with this application to get some experience. You could just as well insert that data yourself. But this is a real quick way just to get the sample data to make sure your application's working the correct way. Now going to the column directives, these are some things you might be using when you want to do a little bit more when it comes to data validation and data integrity. So for example, we might have an email column and we might want to force that to be lowercase. Or we can put /NN for not null, and that will require a value. You can also do check constraints, and you can force things to be unique. All of the capabilities that you would expect to be able to control inside of a table, you can do that with these column directives inside of QuickSQL. So as an example, I think we'll go and make a couple of these not null just to ensure they have a value. And again, we'll add the table directive as well, which is insert and then some number. So let's X out of this and give that a try. So we're going to do inside of books, we're just going to say / insert, and then some number, we'll say 30. So we're going to create 30 books. And then we also have to do that for the authors table. So we're going to say / insert. And in this situation, I'm going to actually insert 50 authors. That's because there can be more authors than books, because a particular author can author numerous books. Now, if you didn't watch the video, I just wanted to mention again that in this design, it is perfectly okay to have repeating author names. I'm not using this as a many-to-many relationship. It's a one-to-many. So what's going to happen is we might have some repeating first names and last names, but overall the application's a fairly small application, so it's not the end of the world. And I would say that the simplicity is worth the trade-off of having a couple repeating values. No big deal. You just need to understand that when it comes to designing a database, there's not one way to do it. It's all a matter of opinion and what you prefer for a particular application. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to make these not null, generate the SQL, and what do we get? We get this not null attached to each of these columns. And if you scroll down, you can see insert into books, here's a particular value, and it does that numerous times. So it's going to put a lot of data in here for us. Now the other thing I wanted to talk about was views. So views is how we want this data to appear. And one particularly useful view might be combining these tables. So I'm not sure if you're able to easily visualize how this data is going to appear, but basically the books is going to be a series of titles, ISBNs, and publication dates. But there's not going to be any author data inside of that table. So if you wanted to grab the author data, you're going to have to go look at the authors table, and then you're going to have to mentally combine these two, and it's really not easy to view. So a better way to do this would be to combine this data using a view. So let's create a view, and then let's go look at the data, and you'll see exactly what I mean. So to create a view, all you have to do is say view, and then you give it a name. So for example, we could say books_v for view. That's the name of the view. And then we put a space, and we can say books, which is the table, and we're going to combine that with authors. And when we generate the SQL, let's look for it. We have this create view, and what it's going to do is it's going to grab all the book information, it's going to grab all of the author information from those two tables, and it's going to do a join where the book IDs are equal. So that's how it's going to combine the data. So what we're going to do now is we're going to save this SQL script, and we'll just call this books and authors. It's saved, and then we can review and run, and then you can run it. And if you have 20 years, you can go through, make sure everything's good. We're gonna run it. Yep, run now. Awesome, and here's each one of the statements. You can see that a table was created, table created, some triggers, index, views, and then a bunch of rows were inserted. And we have 88 successful, 0 error. So it looks like everything went well. Now what we can do is we can go look at that data by going back to the main page. Once you're in here, you can go to the object browser and then select the table you're interested in. So first, let's take a look at the books. And then we can go to the data. And this is what it might look like. Now, obviously, the title is a little sloppy. You know, your book titles are probably going to be a little smaller than that, but this is just generated data, so don't worry about that. The ISBN is probably going to be a number, so also don't worry about all that either. Now, if you scroll over, you can see it has nothing about the authors. So you're going to have to go to the authors table, and then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to figure out which book each author is associated with, and that's just really messy. So the fix for this is to use a join, which we did inside of our view. So what we can do is go to our views and select that and go to books_v. And here you can see the data combined. Go over to data. And now you can see the book ID, title, ISBN, publication date, author ID, first name, and last name. And I did a little bit of research for the ISBN. Yeah, so the structure, I probably should have knew this like many years ago, but the structure for an ISBN is up to 13 characters. So you could probably just use varchar 13, looking back at that. All right, so that's our view. We got our data ready to go, and now we can start building an application using it. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to check out the next video because that's gonna be a lot of fun. And yeah, hopefully you guys learned something like the appropriate size for an ISBN. And yeah, that's all I got. So see you in the next video, and be sure to subscribe. Welcome everyone. This episode covers a lot of different things. We're going to be talking about taking database tables and generating a web application from that. I'll show you how to add pages to your site. We'll get into authentication and logging into your site, as well as sharing your site with others. And lastly, we'll get into how to modify the look and feel of your website. So lots of stuff. Let's get started, and hope you enjoy. This video, we're going to be talking about how to create an app from these tables that we've been creating in the previous couple videos. Now, before we get started, I did want to show you guys one thing. In the last video, we had the issue because books, I set the ISBN to the wrong data type. So this was originally like varchar 255 or like 4000 or something ridiculous. And the problem was that the automatic generated data was way too large. But you can see I actually cropped it down to 5 characters. You could have done 13 or whatever. And I just wanted to show you guys how to do that real quick so you guys could be on the same page. I did this with custom SQL, so going back to the main page, and then inside of SQL commands, I executed this query here. Now, I actually did it with the length 5, but you could do 13 because I think ISBNs go up to length 13. So this shows that anything is possible, but obviously you wouldn't want to do this in production data because you're at a serious risk of deleting something important. So because we're working with generated data, I'm fine with this, but you always want to try to get your data structure right before you start putting important data in it. So basically this query just took the first 13 characters and set that to the ISBN, and it did this for everyone that ISBN was greater than 13, which would be everyone, so I'm not even sure that's necessary. Then what I did is I altered the table and modified the ISBN by setting it to varchar 2 of size 13. Alright, so that is how you get up to speed with where I am. That's how you change the data type, and now we're good to go. We should be able to deal with the data we have and start creating an application. So what I want to do is I want to take this books table that we created, and I want to take this data and I want to put that on a pretty web page. See, I can access the data from here, but I have to sign into Apex and I got to go to the SQL workshop, and that's not cool. I want to put it on a pretty web page that I can show off to my friends, impress some ladies, and so forth. Because obviously that's why people go into technology, it's to get the ladies. So what we're going to do is we're going to build an interactive report that you can go in and work with this data. So let's go to the app builder. We're going to create a new application from scratch. New application. Give it some really cool name. We'll call it My Library. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some pages. Now here are a lot of different options for pages that we can start with. We can modify each and every one, but this is basically the starting point. So if you want a particular thing, you might want to select it from this list. So let's go with a report, and this is going to be for books. Now we can select a table. What table are we going to select from? That's right, we're going to do books. Now if you want to keep it real simple and just put everything together, you could actually use the books view, which will be nice and clean because that's going to have the authors already in there. Then we can add the page, and then we can choose an appearance. The one we've been using is this Vita, but there's all kinds of different options. I will go with this one. You could also use a custom theme if that's something you're into, and we'll save changes. Now I'm going to enable all features. 2 things of interest I wanted to call out is the access control. So this allows people to log in and we can give people different capabilities. And the other thing was that there's this theme style selection, so this allows you to easily change the look and feel of your website. With access control, by default, it's just going to be Apex accounts, so anyone who has an account under your workspace, which we might get into that soon. Basically, you can create accounts that people can log into your web application and start working with it. Scrolling down, we can click Create Application and give it a couple seconds, and we'll be good to go. Now, before we hit Run Application, I want to show you guys something just real quick. Under Shared Components, here's where you can get extra information about some of those things we enabled. So for example, under security, this is where we can find the authentication. So you can go under authentication schemes and you can change it up. So rather than using Apex accounts, you could do social sign-on, or you can do single sign-on, or some various other ways of signing into your web application. We're going to leave it at the default for right now. So what we're going to do is go back to the application right here and run the application. Log in. And here's a simple application that we can go view our books and do some basic analytics on them. Alright, so this is our table. What we can do now is we can explore some other options. For example, we have this theme roller capability down at the bottom. And what this does is it allows you to change the way your page looks. So you can change the global colors, which will kind of just change the entire website, or you can change any specific thing. So just to see this out, let's go make this bright pink, bright red. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the background bright purple. Right, this is modern web development. This is what it looks like. Oh boy. So this obviously looks terrible, so I'm not gonna keep that. But what you can do is you can easily adapt a web page to a particular theme. So if you're developing an application for a company or for a school or nonprofit, you can basically put their colors in here and boom, your website pretty much looks like their website. And of course, I'm going to reset. We can open interactive reports and we can change the background. So if you want like a gray background, for example, you can do that. There you go. This is a draggable window, by the way. And then all you gotta do is save as. And what you can do is you can create a new style because we have a list of styles we can choose from and we can basically add to this list. So let's save this as slate gray background and save. Now when you're choosing your style, that's going to be an option that you can use to easily change the theme for a website. Now the other thing I wanted to share with you is how to share this web page with someone. So when you look up at the URL, there's going to be a lot of this junk at the end, but the real thing that defines your application is everything before this first colon. So this number here is your application ID, and that's all that's important. So we can just go from the beginning, copy that, and you can share that with someone. And what they can do is go to this application and log in. What do they use to log in, you might ask? Well, the username and passwords for your applications are tied to your workspace. So if you create a workspace on your own and you create user accounts, those are different than the user accounts for my workspace. So we need to do a little bit of work on the back end. So inside of the app builder, we're going to select my library and click edit, then go into shared components. All of the user information junk is found in the security panel. So what we're going to do is we're going to look first at the authentication schemes. And you can see that we're using application express authentication. So people need an Apex account under this workspace. So you can change that if you want to try some different ways of verifying people. But we're just going to create an Apex account under our workspace. So first we need to define who's allowed to access the application. So we'll go to application access control and we're going to add user role assignment. And then we'll just go with test@test.com and this is a reader and then we'll create that assignment. All right, so this person's allowed to access this application. Now what we need to do is we need to actually create that account because this is basically just saying this person's allowed, but you could put anything there. It doesn't necessarily mean they exist. So under this tab at the top right, the third one from the right here, you're going to go to manage users and groups. And here we're going to create a user. So we're going to make test@test.com, put that for the email address, and we're just going to put no for all this stuff so this person doesn't have any special privileges for the back end of Apex. Then we're going to give it a password, and then we're going to create the user. Cool, so that's where that shows up, and you can create another if you would like, just to practice. So this time we'll do test2@test.com. No. All right, we'll create that user as well. All right, now let's try logging into our application. First one we're going to try is test. Test@test.com, sign in. And look at that, we access the library. Whoop, whoop. Cool, so all that stuff's available to us. Now what I want to do is I want to sign out, and I want to try test 2. So in this situation, when we sign in, it says we're not authorized to view this application. What the heck? Going back to the back end, you can see that this user account exists, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has permission to access that application. That is why inside of the app builder, we had to configure those settings. So that was available under shared components and then application access control. So we put test in here, but we didn't put test 2. So that's just a little bit on, the authentication. Obviously, this is a big subject, especially with the fact that you can do social media accounts and other stuff like that. We're just using the basic Apex accounts, which isn't necessarily recommended for large-scale applications, but if you're just dorking around making some simple stuff, they seem to do just fine. So the next obvious step is to take your application to the next level, because right now it's really weak.
But I think that's all I have time for in this video. In fact, I went through an awful lot of material, so I'll let that digest. And while that's digesting, maybe just look around on the app builder, go through the docs, see what else is possible, and see what kind of application you can build. So far, I think I've given you the foundation, all the main pieces of Apex, so you understand how it works, you understand how to use it. Now you just need to understand the practical skills on building applications using Apex. Yes, there's a learning curve, but the learning curve is definitely a lot lower than if you had to pick up all the programming language capabilities yourself. So definitely a good time investment, and I wish you guys the best, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next videos. Thank you for watching, and please be sure to subscribe. Peace out.
What is up, boys and girls? Welcome back to your Oracle Apex tutorial series. Today we're going to be talking about how to use Apex on the Oracle Autonomous Database. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be teaching you how to, step up your game. Before we get into setting up the Autonomous Database, we're going to take this video just to talk about what it is and why you might want to use this. Now, this is within the bigger context of Apex, so this might not be the super deep dive of Autonomous Database if you're like a database engineer, right? We're just going for the basics here. So, Oracle Autonomous Database. Autonomous, got it. All right, so the Autonomous Database, it's not a new database, same database, but with some extra automation added in. So basically, Oracle took AI, machine learning, put that as an additional layer on the database, and basically it makes our lives a lot easier if we're trying to use this database. So we don't have to worry about a lot of the stuff that we may have used to have to worry about in earlier editions of the database. Fortunately, it's super easy to get started with the Autonomous Database because you just open it up on the cloud, boom, there you go, you got a database running. But we also get that added benefit in that we're still in the cloud. We don't have to download anything, install anything, configure anything, nothing like that. We just start it and we're pretty much ready to go. Also, the benefit is that there is a free trial and we only have to pay for what we really need to use. So you can kind of scale as your application grows versus buying all this hardware and installing the database on it directly. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Apex on the Autonomous Database, and we're also going to talk about another tool called SQL Developer. SQL Developer is a tool we talked about a long time ago, and now we're talking about it again because they just added the cloud offering of the software, SQL Developer Web. Yeah. Basically, this is another tool to work with our database, and this might be a tool you're more likely to be using if you are more on the database side of the application development. So some things we can do inside of Apex, we can do SQL and stuff like that, but if you really want to get in there, do some data modeling or whatever else you want to do, you can do that inside of SQL Developer Web. So that's another tool you can use to your advantage to, be awesome and like create good applications and whatnot. So what is the Autonomous Database and why would we want to use it? Like I mentioned, it automates a lot of stuff, so it saves us from having to worry about it. So when we're working with the Autonomous Database, there are two workload possibilities. There's transactional and then there's warehouse. So when would you want to use which one? So transactional is used when we are creating an application that's going to have a lot of statements being executed. Warehousing is more for data analytics when we want to look across a lot of our data and do really large select statements that basically aggregates data across numerous rows. So for what we're doing in this series, we are more interested in the transactional workload. That's what we're going to be using. So anytime you think of an application that's going to be doing essential CRUD statements, creating stuff, reading stuff, updating stuff, and deleting stuff, without an extreme focus on just reading, then the transactional workload is probably what you were looking for. There's going to be a lot of statements, but they might not be super huge statements. You might just insert one row, or you might delete one row, or whatever it might be. So the first primary things that are automated with the Autonomous Database, really simple, CPU and storage scaling. Nothing revolutionary. Essentially, your processing can scale and the storage needs can scale. This can be automatic. So for example, you might have 6 processors on your database instance, and it can automatically scale up to 3 times that. So like 27. I'm kidding, guys. I'm not stupid. If you got 6 processors, up to 3 times, that gives you up to 19 cores without having to do anything. So personally, I think there are a lot of other services that might do similar things with the CPU and storage scaling. So maybe that's not the key differentiators, but there are a couple other things that might make the Autonomous Database a little bit more interesting. I don't have a shirt. When all else fails, use an eraser. Automatic patching, so anytime there's a security issue, those are going to be applied immediately and you don't have to worry about it. Next we have artificial intelligence powered performance enhancements. So essentially somewhere in there, they're doing some AI machine learning stuff. So that'll help you get the best performance out of your queries. Another thing is with security, the AI is baked in here too as well, because the database will automatically prevent any kind of inappropriate access to the database. They are pretty confident in the capabilities as well as the resiliency of this database, so much that you can get a service level agreement for the uptime of like 99.995%. So essentially you're building on a pretty solid, trustworthy database. If you're doing mission critical stuff, the scalability is there, and that you can scale your application and have the appropriate database to back it. So if you're doing some like serious stuff, you might want to consider the autonomous database. So what we're going to do now in the next video, we're going to be talking about how to set up the autonomous database and how to get Apex up and running. So it's going to be pretty cool. Please be sure to check it out and don't forget to subscribe. Peace out.
Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to your Apex tutorial series. This video, we're going to be talking about how to get started with the autonomous database. Essentially, what I want you to do is search autonomous database and find, for example, this page here, which is all about what an autonomous database is. So here you can get a little bit more information about what I was talking about in the previous video, and if you want some more juicy details, you can watch the video or click any of these links and hear a little bit more. But what I want to show you guys is how to get the free trial. So fortunately on this page, we can easily just click free cloud trial, and that's going to take us to the page we need to get started. Before we click this, there's one other page I wanted to show you guys, and that is this right here. Here we can get a much more in-depth view of the autonomous database. So in here we have more information about the available workloads. For example, I said we'll probably do transactional processing, but you can get a little bit more info about data warehousing here as well. And scrolling down, you can see some about the CPU scaling, the storage scaling, as well as stuff about the security, blah, 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 you know, all that good stuff that I'm not really going to cover a whole lot. We're just going to go get started because that's what I really want to do. If you want all that extra information, by all means, go do that. Alright, so with the free trial here, you just click this create a free account. You can get a 30-day free trial up to $300 credits, which should be more than enough for what we need. So click create a free account, and you're going to put in some information here, give your email and etc. I don't know, you can just create an account name. I'm just going to go with Caleb YouTube. I'm going to go for personal use, and I'm going to select North America, and Ashburn's fine for me. Alright, I'm going to fill the rest of this info out. Alright, next thing you gotta do is add a credit card, but fortunately you're not going to be charged unless you upgrade your account, so it's not going to be one of those things like where you subscribe and then like 30 days later you're like, oh crap, they just charged me like $6 million because I forgot to cancel. That's not going to be happening on you, so add your credit card here. Alright, once you're done, you should get to a page something like this. Once you got that, just check your email, you get some further instructions. So eventually you'll get that email and you'll be able to sign in with the username and password that is inside that email. Your username is going to be your email, and then the password is whatever they assign to you. And then go ahead, assign a new password, and eventually you'll get to this page, which is the destination we are looking for. So congratulations, you got through the gate. Now we can start creating stuff and having some fun. So what you're going to do is over on the left panel, I'm going to X out all this other junk, so we're not going to need any of it. Over here on the left panel, go into autonomous transaction processing. You can also do data warehousing if you're more interested in the analytical stuff. We're interested in CRUD, so we're going to go with this. And we're going to create an autonomous database. So yeah, pretty much the defaults are fine. You can customize if you like. The only thing you need to do is go in here and set a password. So this is the admin credentials. You want to take note, and we're going to need these later. And then license included, and then create autonomous database. Now, if you need some more substance, some more juice, go up here, change that processing limit. This is the base, but with the possibility of it being increased up to 3 times by checking this auto scaling. So if that's something you think you might need if you're trying to do some serious processing, go ahead and do that. But for now, I'm gonna keep the basics because we're really not doing a whole lot, and I just want to make sure I don't go over with my credits. So
we're going to keep the basics and create that autonomous database. So when we get to this page, you see it's provisioning. You're going to need to wait a little bit. So why don't you go play some Fortnite or just relax? Or maybe instead of Fortnite, you could play Apex. You see what I did there? Because you know, Apex is a game and we're also on Oracle Apex. Man, that was pretty good. All right, I'll be back. Gotta let this wait. Awesome, it just finished. So what we can do now is we can look at the extra capabilities, specifically Apex and SQL Developer. So to find this, you know, it's a little bit hidden, unfortunately. So what we gotta do is go to the Service Console, and then over here inside of Development, we can get Apex and SQL Developer Web. That's the end of this video. We got you set up. In the next video, we're gonna be talking about what you need to do to start using these tools inside of the autonomous database. So there's a little bit more you gotta do before you start creating stuff, because you're gonna have to go in here, create a workspace, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the SQL Developer Web as well. Alright, so thank you guys for watching. Hopefully that was a good introduction. You should be good to go. You've got your cloud account and you can start provisioning junk and everything like that. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to your Apex tutorial series. This is probably going to be the last video where we're talking about setup and prep, and then we're going to get back into application development with Apex. So I'm pretty excited to get through this stuff and I hope you guys are as well. The purpose of this video is I really want to introduce first off, how to start Apex on Autonomous, as well as SQL Developer Web. Now, if you're just jumping in and you're wondering how in the world I got to this page, what you need to do is inside of Oracle Cloud, go to Autonomous Transaction Processing, and then open your database. Inside of here, click Service Console, and then Development. And that's gonna bring you here. So first thing, let's open Apex. Here's what it's going to ask you for. It's going to ask you for your admin password. We created this in the previous video. So if you were following along, you wrote it down, right? And then sign into administration. And now that we're signed in, we create our workspace. So here we can create a user, password, and a workspace name. So I'm just going to go with that. And there we go. So this page here, this is where we manage our workspaces. So when you sign into the administration with your admin password, you can do some more higher level stuff. But if you want to go into the actual workspace and create an application, you actually need to sign out and sign back in with that new user we just created, as you can see in this note right here. So over here, we sign out of admin, return to the sign in page, and now we can go into our new workspace. Boom, there you go. That's how you get into Oracle Apex on Autonomous. This works exactly the same as apex.oracle.com, so we can go in here, we can go into the app builder, create a sample application, for example. We'll go productivity app, and just to see that everything works the same, we can just click sample database application and install the app. So that is how you work with Apex. All right, so now that you have a pretty good understanding of how to get started with Apex, let's take a break to talk about SQL Developer Web. So what we want to do is we want to click SQL Developer Web. Now our goal here is to sign in with the same database user that we created with our Apex workspace. That way we can see the tables that we created with our sample application. But there's actually an extra step you're going to have to take, because if you try to sign in with those credentials, we get an error. So here is an article showing what you need to do. I'll leave a link for you guys in the description, or you can just copy along what I type here. So by default, you can sign in with the admin user, but that's not what we want to use. We want to use, in this situation, the Caleb user, or whatever you decided to name your user. So all we gotta do is copy the script, and then we need to go sign in with the admin user. These are the credentials we established in the previous videos, so sign in with this. And here's your first look at SQL Developer. You're going to be able to navigate through all your database objects over here on the left. You can see them here. And you'll probably get a guided step-by-step thing showing you around, but you can X out of that, and if you ever need to get it back, you can just go over here and click these little binoculars, I think. Yep, there you go. So what we're going to do is we're going to paste the script here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Oh, too much. There we go. So for the schema name, we're going to use the database user. So that was Caleb. And then we're going to use a schema alias. And that document I showed you guys states here that we want to make sure that we use something different than the schema name. So we'll just give it something, you know, really creative. No. I got something better. There we go. And then we will run this.
and it says procedure successfully completed. Now what I want to do is I want to go try signing in with this user here. So sign out. Now if you take a close look at the web address, you'll see the /admin. We're going to want to change that to the alias we just created. So I think it was Caleb is humble. And this is going to allow us to sign in with that user. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use that information. So we'll go with Caleb, sign in, and whoa, there you go. That is how you get into Oracle SQL Developer Web. So then we'll go to the worksheet. And here we are back to where we were originally with the admin account. But now we're in the Caleb user. So we can go in here and see all of these demo tables that were created with Apex. Now there is a lot of stuff you can learn when it comes to SQL Developer, but let's just go over some of the basics. You can see them shown here in this helper. So this is the object browser. Here you can see all the different things that are associated with this user or with this schema. Right now we are looking at the tables, but you can go in here and look at all objects to see everything else that's in here. So it looks like there's some indexes. And there's a lot of other different options in here. If there were stuff for these, they would show up. So for example, if there are procedures, you could find those here as well. Going back to tables, you can hit this plus button if you want to create a new table. That's something you can go through if you need. So you can execute a query by hitting this green button here. That's going to show up in the query result down here. You can also go to the SQL history to see the recent statements you've been executing if you want to go back and reference one of those. You can click this explain plan if you're into the details of how these queries work. You can get the information in here. You can also download the information. You can automatically format the information, which is nice. So if you copy some script from somewhere and it's ugly, you can press that and boom, it looks pretty. Or if you just type it out and you want to format it, that's a good way to make it look nice for you guys. One of my favorite things about SQL Developer is the data modeler. This is a great way to plan out your data model as well as just get practice with database design. You can go through the tutorial with this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to X out of that and click this button, and you can get the table information from the database just by putting the asterisk in here. And you can see all of our tables in here. We can select these and we can add them to our diagram. And once that's done, you can see it's back here. So what we can do is we can just X out of this, and you can see over on the right, we have the zoomed out version of what this looks like, and you can see how everything is connected. So whenever you're working with data and you need to see the diagram for how the relationships work, you can go into the data modeler, do what I just did, and save yourself a lot of stress and headache. So it's really, really awesome. You can also save this diagram to an image, which is really awesome, or you can print it. If you save it, you can email it, have people look at it, whatever you need. So that's a really great way to share your data model with other people. So that's the basics of the data modeler. Obviously, we just scratched like the bare surface. Obviously, you can go over here, you can create new tables and put those in your diagram. If you want to do that, you can see there's a lot of different capabilities when we're creating tables, but we're just going to stick with what we have for right now. If you want to get more information, there is documentation. So I just searched Oracle SQL Developer Web documentation. God, I spelled it wrong because I can't spell. And look at this, we got a PDF. So this is lots of words and diagrams if you want to learn the really big juicy details of how to use this tool. This tool might come in handy when you're working with Apex. Definitely recommend you understand how to sign into the tool and how to work with your data. So that's all I got for you guys in this video. I'm excited for the next video. We're gonna get into something new, so please be sure to subscribe. Cannot talk. Please be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys, and peace out. Hey, welcome everybody. This is the start of a new section in this Apex series. What I want to be showing you is how to create an actual application. Now, we are going to still keep things pretty simple, but we're going to try to go a little bit more and to actually build something that might be useful. So this idea I have is an application that would allow me to keep track of when I reach out to other creators on YouTube or Twitter or whatever. Anytime I want to collaborate, I want to write that down so I can keep track if they responded, if I need to follow up, or whatever it might be. So what we're going to first do is we're going to create some database tables, and then we're going to fill some data into those tables, and then we're going to talk about how we can create this relationship manager. So let's sign in to Apex. And we'll go into the SQL workshop first. And what we're going to go do is go into utilities and click quick SQL. Now we've talked about this a lot, so some of this is going to be review, but by the end of this next couple of videos, we'll have a really cool application which will have a list of users or a list of contacts where we can select, and a series of notes that we can read and also add notes to the list. So it should be pretty cool. So hang in there while we get through some of the stuff we may have already talked about. What we're going to do is we're going to create a contacts table. This will have a first name and a last name. It'll also just have some various things of ways we could reach out to this person. So maybe it's their email or Twitter or YouTube. We'll also put a website in here. Basically any information we need about that person. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create a notes table. And in here we'll have a contact ID, which will basically associate this back to the contact table. We'll have a date created. And we'll have a message, which will be the actual note content. First thing, I don't think we need 4,000 characters for the Twitter handle or anything, so I'm going to change that real quick. I'll just make it varchar 255, and I'll do that for these as well. And then just look over your SQL, make sure it seems right. This references the other table, so that's good. And we have the message, seems to be right. Everything's looking pretty good. Now, again, there is this help menu that you can look through if you need help with any of this stuff. For example, in the table directives, you can see insert NN. We can just basically put some sample data in this to see. So that's what I want to do. So we'll want to add a /insert and then some number. So up for the contacts, let's just add 5 contacts. So we'll say insert 5. And then what I want to do is I want to insert maybe 20 notes. Generate that, take a look at it, and then we'll just save. We will call this collab and review and run. All right, so we have a lot of statements here. Doesn't seem like anything broke, so what we're going to do is we're going to create an app from this script. And when you do this, you're going to get 2 default pages, one for the contacts and one for the notes. This will allow us to look through the data, and that's exactly what we want. We're just going to call this application collab. Scroll down, I'm just going to check all the features, and I'm going to create application. Awesome, so right off, let's just run the application, see what it looks like. Sign in with your Apex credentials. And you have the contacts and the notes. So let's first look in the contacts, see all the people we're reaching out to. So it looks pretty good. Obviously the Twitter handle and the URLs might be a little long, but it serves its purpose for now. So these are all the people I may have reached out to, and I just put all their information I knew about them here so I could remember. Next thing, we have the notes. These are the things that we actually said to these people. So for example, for this person, here is a note about them. So maybe I wrote in here, reached out to them on Twitter, waiting for a response, or something like that, or follow up in 3 days. So what you can do is you can select the contact ID and choose which person you're looking for information for. So for example, August, you can get all of August's information, or Griselda. And there's all the information for that person as well. Now, another cool thing is what we can do is let's get rid of these filters here and go to the contacts table. In here, you can actually select this person's name. It'll automatically grab the notes for that person. So for example, we can select Dean and take a look at this. Here are all the notes from Dean. So it's filtering by the contact ID. Dean is selected. You can also uncheck that if you want to go back, and you can easily toggle that. So it's pretty crazy how automatically it already knows that we're going to look at the notes for various contacts just based on the database relationships. So I mean, it could be that our app is already functional and we don't actually have to do anything else. We are going to do some other things, but the actual core functionality is here. You can actually go in here and you can create your own notes. It's going to be a little wonky because you're going to have to get that person's contact ID. So you're going to need to go look in the database tables, or you're going to have to type in the date manually, and then you'll type in your message. So it's working, but there are some things we could improve on. First off, if the contact ID was automatically filled in there, the date was already put to today. Those 2 things alone would make this application a lot better. And we're also going to add another page in our application, which will have a new display called a master detail page. And essentially in this situation, the names will be on the left. You select the name, and the notes that we created about this person are going to be on the right. So that way we can just have a better visual of the different people options and the notes associated with them without having to go to 2 separate pages.
So let's talk about this again and what we're going to do next in the next video. Hopefully this was really helpful, just setting up a really simple relationship manager. I mean, at this point, we've put about 5 minutes into it, so it's probably not going to compete with some of the projects already built out there that you could use, but you can elaborate on this and build it to your exact needs, which is the really cool part. So I'm pretty excited. Be sure to check out the next video because it should be pretty fun. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this video where we're going to be talking about creating a master detail page. Now, to get to where we are at this point, you will probably want to watch the previous video, but if not, all we have is 2 tables. We have a contact table and then notes, which references that contacts table. Going into the contacts, we can see all of our contacts and their information, and then we can actually select one of these people's names and we get the notes about these people. And the idea here is we can keep track of interactions with these people, so that way it's not so unorganized when I do collaboration requests with other people. I can have all the information about a particular person all in one spot. This works, but what I don't like about this is it's a little wonky getting the contact information on another page and then having to choose this drop down to filter the contact ID. And you can see, I have to uncheck this and then select another contact ID. What I really want is I want all the people information on the left and their contact information and the notes associated with them on the right. So that's what we're going to do in this video with a master detail page. And that's the value what this page offers, is it allows us to store a little bit more information on one page. So going over to the app builder for this application, what we're going to do is we're going to create a page, and in here we're going to click master detail, and you can choose which style you want. I'm going to go with side by side. In that situation, the usernames will be over here on the left. We'll get a little bit more information about them up here on the top on the right, and then we'll get their notes down here on the bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. The starting page number, that's just an internal thing to keep track of the page so we can go and edit it, so you don't have to worry about that. We do want to give this a name though. We'll give it info and select next. Now I'm going to select create a new navigation menu entry. You can call it info, or you can call it user details or master detail page, whatever you'd like to see. Click next. Now we need to select a table that the information comes from. In here we're going to select contacts, primary display column. We'll just go first name. So that's the information on the left. It's going to show people by first name, but we're going to also do last name. If your primary way of reaching out to these people for their collaborations is by email or Twitter handle, you might want to change the primary display column because that's what you're going to readily see. But for me, first and last name works great. And then we have to choose what table we want information to pop up when we select that name. So what we're going to do is we're going to select notes, and then that's all we got. So we'll click create. All right, so right off the bat, let's just run this, see what we get. And here's our new table. You can see all the people's names over here on the left. We select one. We get more info about them, so we get all the information from the contact table, and then down here we get the notes of the information on how we reached out to this person. Now, one beautiful thing that this master detail page fixed for us, we didn't have to do anything crazy, is that when we go and add a note in here, you can see that the ID is automatically populated there. We still have to select the date, but that's not a big deal. We can choose today, and maybe this will give you the flexibility to choose a different date if you forgot to make a note at some point, or whatever it might be. I think what we'll do is we'll default this to today, and I'll show you guys how to do that, but it'll give you the capability to change it if you want. And I'll just say, reached out on Twitter about product review collab. Create that, and look at that. Automatically shows up down there. It's looking pretty good. You can go through the different people and see how the pages change, the notes change. Everything looks pretty good. Now, the only other thing that I wanted to show you guys is over here on the left, you can see the info page is right there. But if you go to the home page, you don't see it on this home page. You just see the contacts and notes. And I want to show you guys how to add that info page right here as another button. So what you're going to do is edit page 1. And you can see in here you have this page navigation, and this source panel here has list page navigation. Clicking that little arrow, you can edit component. And what that's going to do is it's going to take you to this list. And this basically is the list of pages you want to link to. You can see we're in shared components. So you could actually use this list in numerous locations, which is nice. We're just using it in one. That's fine for us, but if you wanted to use this list in another component, you can do that because it's part of the shared components thing. So if you want to see those shared components, you can also click this triangle, circle, square thing over here. Select that, and under navigation, you can see we have lists. The one we're looking for is page navigation, and we're going to create an entry. What do we want to call it? We'll just call it the master detail info. Scrolling down, all we got to do is choose what page we want to link this to, and it was the info page. You can look through all of the other options in here, but for me, that should be good. We'll just go with the defaults, and we'll just create list entry. So there it is, it exists. Going back to our application, we can do a refresh, and there we go, we got the master detail info. Now, one other thing I might edit in here is I might go in here and see this image/class. We can actually choose one from this list here. So let's maybe go with the address book one. It's kind of cool. And we'll apply those changes. Going back, we do a refresh. And now we have that logo over here on the right. Now, if we want to update this logo over here on the left, we can do a similar thing. These come from two different lists. So this one's populated from a list, and then these three are populated from a list. So what we can do is actually go back to our lists, and under this list dropdown, we can choose a different list. And we're actually going to go to desktop navigation menu and choose this info right here. Going in here, we can choose an image/class, and we'll go with the address book up here, right here. And then we'll apply those changes and go and do a refresh. And there you go, you got the icon to match in both spots. Thank you guys for watching. In the next video, we're going to elaborate on this application. Hopefully this has been helpful for you guys so far, and I'm looking forward to what we got next, so stay tuned. Hey, what's going on everybody? In this video, what I wanted to do is talk about adding a new section to our master detail page. So right now we're listing notes about particular people, but what if I wanted to add another section for tasks? So let's say I reach out to them and then I put a task in here saying I need to follow up with them in 3 weeks. So maybe the notes section would be general information, and then the tasks section would be more of something I have to do with a deadline. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're actually going to make a table very similar to the notes, but with just a couple of different columns. One's going to be a due date. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to SQL Workshop, Utilities, Quick SQL. So we're going to create a table of tasks. This is going to have a contact ID. Notice here that this is not referencing anything really right now. So what we need to do is we need to say /FK, and then the table we want to reference, which is contacts. Then we're also going to have a date due and a message. So it's very similar to the notes table, just with one different column. I think there is a possibility where you could make one table serve the purpose so the notes could have an optional due date. But for simplicity, I found it easier to separate these out into two tables, whatever you think is best for you guys. Just make sure the SQL looks good. We have a date type, we have a foreign key, and we have a primary key. So it looks good. Let's save this. We'll save it as tasks, review and run. Run that. Run now. And there we go. Now we don't want to create an app from the script. We're just going to pull that into the app we already have. So what we need to do is go back to our app, and we're actually going to edit this page. We're actually going to use some copy paste skills here. So over on the left, make sure you have this tab selected, and we'll just scroll down. And notice we have this contacts here, that shows up there. And then we have the notes here, that shows up there. And then we have the no record selected, which appears here on the layout, but that's really just what happens when you don't have anybody selected. So if you click reset, that's how you can configure this page here. But if what we want to do is actually add a new section in here, we can put it after the notes. So the easiest way to do that is to select notes over here on the left, right click, and say duplicate. And we're just going to have to change some stuff in here. So the very first thing is the title. We'll want that to say tasks. And the table name we get this from, we're going to want that to be something else as well. We'll make that tasks. One other thing real quick for you guys is that for this where clause, you're actually going to want to take from the notes this value. So what this is going to do is it's going to use the value of the contact ID that was passed into this page. That way we only get the tasks for that specific user. Now it's not complete, but what I want to do is I want to show you where we're at. So save. Take a look at the page. We did a refresh. Scrolling down, you can see this new tasks section. And we can go in here, we can add a new task, but it's not going to be quite what we want, because you see this pops up and it says notes, and it asks for the date created, but we want a due date. So this is just not exactly what we want. And the reason this is, well, first you can actually quick edit and you can select this section if you want to basically get that information, what's coming up. And we're actually, you can see on a different page here. So when we click that plus button, a new page is popping up and it's dedicated to notes. So what we're going to be doing in the next video is we're going to have a dedicated video on creating a new page to allow us to create new tasks. So it's going to be very similar to this page and it shouldn't be too bad. So we're pretty close. We got it to where this is showing up, but we just need to take a couple extra steps to make it, actually work for the tasks. So stay tuned in the next video because I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do that. Hey, what's going on everyone? In this video, we're going to finish out our creation of this task section in our master detail page. A couple things we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create a new page for when we open this plus button. We're also going to need to work a little bit with dynamic actions, which is a big part of Apex we haven't really talked about yet, so you should get a little taste of that in this video. I also would like to go back through and work on the appearance here, get rid of that contact ID, and default the date created for the notes. So lots of stuff. Let's get started, and I hope you guys enjoy. So the first thing I want to do is I want to edit page 6, and note that on the notes section, when we click that button, it's called pop notes right here. First thing I want to show you guys is that looking back at our page, for the notes section, the plus button appears right here, but for the task section, it defaulted to down here. So I'll show you guys how to change that first. So in the page designer, you'll notice that the button position is edit, so we just need to copy that for the tasks. So select that button down here, and we're gonna give this a new name as well. So we'll give this pop tasks. In the button position, we'll give it edit. It'll pop right there. Save that and do a refresh just to make sure it looks good. And you can see it right here, so it looks good. When you click the plus, it still brings up the notes page, so I'll show you how to change that now. Go back to the page designer. So select that tasks button here and scroll down. In behavior, you can see the target is page 8. So if you click that and you can click this little list here by the page, you can see the options and you can see it's notes. So what I want to do is I want to go make a duplicate of that where it's a little bit different for tasks. So what we need to do is we actually need to go to page 8. So you can put that right here, click go. And then under this plus, this little drop down arrow, select that and select page as copy. Copy this page. New page number is 9 and we're going to give it a new name. We'll just give it tasks. Next, next, and next. So now what we can do is we can select notes and change this table name to tasks. Save that. Go back, do a refresh. Now I want to click this plus button and it's not changed. What in the world? Well, we created that duplicate page, but we didn't change what this plus button was referencing. So we'll quick edit on this page, select that button, scroll down just a little bit, and then for the target, we actually want to change this to page 9, which is the tasks page. So that's the page we just created, and now we're making that button go to that page. So click OK, save, refresh, click the plus, and look at that, we got tasks, we got the contact ID, the message, and the due date. So the appropriate information is showing up when we click that plus, so that's good. You'll notice that the contact ID is not filled in. Now we do want to hide this eventually, but we do need the actual correct value to show up there so that we know everything's connected. Once everything's connected, then we can change that user interface. So this value for the contact ID is passed as a parameter, and that's going to come from the master detail page. So what we want to do is we want to edit this page and take a look at that button. So let's first look at the notes button, see what it's doing. When you scroll down in here, there's this behavior drop down, and under target, select page 8, and you can see it's passing the ID to this parameter P8 contact ID. So over on page 8, this value is made available to us. We need to do something similar for our button. So what we're going to do is select that button, scroll down under behavior and choose page 9. And all we have to do is change this to P9. Click OK, save, and do a refresh. Clicking the plus button, you can see that the contact ID appears. So the benefit of duplicating a particular section is that it kind of gives us the setup we need. We just got to modify a couple of things. But the downside is you do have to know what to modify. So make sure you update that parameter there, as well as the page that a particular button goes to. So when we duplicated this notes section to this task section, we got to update that button, create a new page, and update that parameter. But as long as you know what to do, make sure you get every piece. Using the duplicate feature can be pretty handy. So let's give it a try. Let's go in here and add a message, choose a date, and create. Now notice nothing happens. This is another thing we have to update. The notes section is doing a refresh when we add a new row. The task though is not refreshing. So it's still working. If we do a page refresh, you can see the value shows up there, but it requires a page refresh. So this is where dynamic actions come in. We want to do a dynamic action to refresh this section when we add a task. So you can quick edit this section here. That'll make sure you're in the right location on the right page, and then click this little lightning bolt here. These are the dynamic actions, which is similar in nature to what JavaScript might allow you to do with web pages. So you can see under dialog closed, we have refresh on dialog close. That's what's allowing the notes section to work. So let's take a look at this. You can see the region is notes, and you can select refresh, and you can see it's refreshing that notes region. So what I want to do is I actually want to duplicate this refresh on dialog close. Right click duplicate, and we just need to update those. So the region is going to be the tasks, and under the refresh, just change that to tasks. Save that. Do a refresh. Let's try it out. We're going to go in here and add a new message. Choose a date and create. And it works. So the dynamic actions allow us to make our application more dynamic. We can choose what region can cause an effect and what regions to modify when that effect happens. And the absolute last thing I want to do in this video is update this to hide that contact ID. So we'll do it here. Select that. Under type, you can just select hidden. Just make sure you got that contact ID selected. Save. We'll do the same thing for the notes page. Select that contact ID and make this hidden. Save. Now going back to our original page, we can create some notes. Clicking that, you can see the ID is gone, but we can still go in here and add a note and it appears. So it's working. We can do it in here too. Create a task and it appears. Now for the tasks, the only other presentation change is I want that due date to default to today in the presentation here. So let's take a look at that. Have the date due column selected, scroll down to the default section, and under type you're going to put PL/SQL expression and just put sysdate, which will get the current date. Save that. Doing a refresh here. When we create one, you can see it defaults to today. As a conclusion, what we did is we basically copied this notes section and made it fully functional for the tasks. We talked about creating a new page that will show up when we click this plus button. We talked about how to get that ID to populate. We talked about how to hide the columns, and we talked about how to default this date. So if it was too much, maybe go back, watch it again, make sure you got everything. But now that you understand all that information, your ability to create better applications should be a thing. So thank you guys for watching. And what we're going to be doing in the next video is, I'm not entirely sure, but whatever it is, it's going to be awesome. So check it out. Hey, what's going on, guys? This video, I'm going to be teaching you how we can take overdue tasks and display those on the home page. So that way we know what we need to be working on. So let's just see this. If we go to one of our contacts and we add a message in here, such as follow up, and we set this a week in the future, create that, and that shows up. Now let's also create one in the past. So let's say we need to send them some info. We were supposed to do that yesterday, but we're slackers. We didn't get to it. Now we have one in the future and one in the past. And we also have some other tasks for some other users. So what I want to do is I want to basically take all the tasks across all the users, and any of them that are overdue, show those in the home page. So let's start with going to the home page and editing this page. So the real easiest way to do this is to just create a classic report and drag this to the top of the content body. We'll give this a name. We'll just say overdue tasks. And we're going to get this information from the tasks table. The where clause is where the magic happens. So if we just save it now, let's see what we got. Without the where clause, we're going to get all of the tasks. And it's definitely not pretty. You can see the message here, follow up and send info. Those are the two we just created. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of the ID and the contact ID and only get the ones that are overdue. So how are we going to do this? Let's go back to the page designer. Well, it's going to be best if you can see the actual person's name versus their ID. So what you could do is you could create a view where you join that information, and then you could just select that view from the table name. Or what you can do is you can actually just do SQL directly. And in here we can actually do a join. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that, get a little bit of practice with SQL. So we're getting this information from the tasks table, but we might also want to get information from that contacts table. So to do this, what we can do is give this an alias, which we'll use. So we'll call this one T, and then we'll say contacts C, and then we can just prefix these columns. So these are all coming from the tasks table. So we'll say T dot, and this is called qualifying, by the way, when we say where it's coming from. And now that we have this contacts table here, we can get more information from that. So what we can do is say C first name and then C dot last name. What you actually alias these tables as, it doesn't really matter as long as they're unique. So that way we can say these ones are from the task table and these are from the contacts table. Now we just need to do a join where contact ID in the tasks table is equal to the ID in the contacts table. So let's start with that. And what you can actually do is you can click this little check mark, see if there's any issues, and there is. We're actually missing a comma here, which is why it's giving us a problem. So validating this, you can see it works, and we'll click OK. We'll run this. And now we got that first name and last name, and now we can actually go and delete the ID and the contact ID. So going in here, we can modify this just by getting rid of those right there. So the only other thing is to get ones in the past, and the way you would do that is you would actually put an and here. So we do the join and where date due is less than sysdate. And sysdate's going to get the date right now, so anything less than that is going to be in the past. So you can validate this again if you want. It looks good. Let's save and run. And there we go. So the ones for today are considered overdue, so that's why we're getting the 19th there. You can see it's the 19th today. And you can also see the ones from the 15th and the 18th, but the ones you don't see are the ones in the future, which we created one earlier, which said something like follow up. So it seems our application is working. Now, if you want to go the extra step and you want a research project of your own, what I would encourage you to do is look into the universal theme for Apex. This will allow you to change this into something a little bit more pretty. And here's an example documentation for this. It might look something like this, where we have the list of tasks. Maybe you can change the icons to describe what kind of tasks or show that they are overdue or going to be overdue soon. You could really customize it however you want. And if you're looking to figure out how to find this page here, I can leave a link for you guys in the description. Or you can actually also do is go to apex.oracle.com/UT. Oh, goodness gracious, Claire, golly. And then go into design. And I think we were in components, lists, and then the one I was on was media list. And you can get the documentation for that. So you can go through this and figure out exactly what you need. Maybe look up some guides on how to do that. Or maybe that's something we'll talk about in the future. Guess we just have to find out. Well, thank you guys for watching. Those are the basics on how to create an overdue task list. Hopefully that was helpful. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Hey, what's going on everybody? In this video, we're going to be talking about 10 resources that'll make your life as an Apex developer a lot easier. So a great place to start is the apex.oracle site, because a lot of the things I'm going to be sharing can be found from these different links. And this is also a great place to get your documentation and so forth. But on to number one, and that is Ask Max. So Ask Max, this guy here, Max, he has been tremendously helpful in helping me plan through this content, and anytime I have a technical issue, I reach out to him. So if you're looking for professional Apex support, if you're building something and you're stuck on something, this is where I would point you. And in fact, he's given up a lot of his time to answer over 1,000 questions on apex.world, which is a community that's actually our second resource. Apex.world is actually a community where you can ask questions, see what's new with Apex, and meet other Apex developers. There's also stuff for jobs, and if you need a job posting or you're looking for jobs, you can do that here. And there's also a Twitter feed from Oracle Apex. The next resource I have for you guys is the Oracle Apex Talk Show, and I'll leave a link to each one of these resources in the description below, but you can find that at apex.press/talk show. This is a podcast where you can hear some of the new stuff with Apex, as well as stories from different developers, and also meet some of the Apex development team on this podcast. In fact, you can see on here, Max was just one of the recent speakers on here, so go check that out if you want to get up to date with Apex. Now, there's actually another podcast I wanted to share with you, and that is the Apex Now podcast. So the Apex Now podcast is another podcast where they talk about the latest news with Apex. And if you're looking for one to start with, why don't you try this one right here featuring the one and only Caleb Curry. So far, I've talked about 4 different ways you can get help with Apex. The first was professionally with Ask Max. Then we talked about the Apex World community. And then we talked about 2 different podcasts. But you might be someone who prefers documentation. So yes, you can go from here and find the documentation in the Learn section. But another great thing is you can actually use a short link to always get the documentation you're looking for. So if you go to apex.oracle.com/doc and then put the version 19.1, no dots, and then press enter, that'll take you to this exact version of the documentation. And that is the next resource for you guys. Next, if you need a little bit more substance on designing your Apex applications, you would check out the documentation for the universal theme. And there is also a short link for that, so you would go to apex.oracle.com/universal theme. And here you can get all of the information about designing beautiful applications with Oracle Apex. Now you might be wondering how I know the short links. Well, if you go back to the apex.oracle webpage, there's actually under community, you can click community resources, and then Oracle Apex short links where you can get the entire list. I just thought I'd share 2 of the ones you might use quite often. So now you understand how to get information through documentation, but maybe you're more of a face-to-face kind of person. And for that, I will refer you to some of the conferences or meetups with Apex. So the one I would recommend is if you go to community events, you can choose which one you want, local or conferences. And I actually went to the ODTUG Kscope. Each year it's in a different location, and this is a great way to get hands-on experience with Apex and get a little bit more substance to learning, because you're going to be there with a lot of other Apex developers, and you'll probably get to meet the developers of the Apex tool itself. So try out Kscope if you want to have that in-person, face-to-face learning. Right now it's linked to Kscope 19, but I think for next year you would just go to kscope20.odtug.com. And you can see it's in Boston. So this is a very fun conference, and I would highly recommend it. Next thing I wanted to share with you guys is the Apex curriculum. So if you're on the apex.oracle site, what you can do is go to Learn, and then I think under Education. And then scrolling through this, you can see all different types of learning. One that I would recommend here for you, though, is the Application Development Curriculum. So select Download Curriculum Materials. Go through this if you want a more systematic approach to learning Apex. Now, when you're developing Apex applications that you want to be production ready, you probably want to put that on a production ready instance, a database. So you could get a server with all of that in-house, or what I would actually recommend giving a try is the Autonomous database. So you can actually get a free cloud trial of this database with Apex on it. So if you want to get started with Apex in the cloud without using apex.oracle.com, this is the way I would recommend you start. Again, I'll leave a link for this for you guys in the description, but all you gotta do is sign up for a free cloud trial, sign up, and you're good to go. We talked about how to use Apex on Autonomous in my Apex series, so go check that out if you need. But what I shared with you now should get you started in the right direction. And the last resource for you guys is actually on my channel, which is a JavaScript series. So JavaScript is used for front-end development, and you might run into the need to use JavaScript with Apex, or just having that extra software development experience might help you with your Apex development. So if you ever run into a situation where you need to understand a little bit more JavaScript, I would recommend you check out my videos. And I mean, they're kind of the best, so obviously I'm going to recommend mine, right? I'm just playing, but you have the option to go through here and watch each video, or what you can do is actually watch the JavaScript programming 9 hours, where I combine all the videos into one. Oh, see, I'm blabbering right there. So if you have 9 hours to spare and have nothing, literally nothing better to do with your life, this video I would recommend. So this video will just take you through really simple programming concepts from the very beginning all the way up to object-oriented programming inside of JavaScript and understanding inheritance and everything like that. So those are my 10 resources. And yeah, definitely be sure to subscribe as this video is telling you. Now what I want to do is I actually want to give Max the opportunity to jump in and share a little bit about his story with Apex and also his service. Again, he's been super helpful with the creation of my Apex videos, and it's the least I can do just to give him a moment to share about what he does.
Hello Caleb, let me start by telling you why I love Apex so much. I really like Apex because even if it's a low-code tool, you're not limited to building only basic applications. As you start using it, you'll be able to build good-looking and responsive applications right from the start. And as you progress in that, you learn more about Apex, about SQL, PL/SQL, JavaScript, and CSS. You'll be able to go even further and build more advanced features and so more advanced applications. If you need to know more, there is the apex.world communities website. It's the one place to go if you want to learn about all the news and everything related to Apex. There are also some Slack channels available for help. And that's basically how I had the idea for my Ask Max service. Because throughout the years, I've been helping a lot of people by answering a lot of questions on these Slack channels. And I decided to try and make a living out of it, so I started Ask Max. If you're wondering what it's all about, it's basically a place where you can get professional Apex help and support. Whether you're a beginner or someone with a better Apex knowledge, you can ask me anything. I can do trainings, I can do coaching, I can even build plugins for you if you'd like me to, whatever you need. It's also easy to book me if you're on a small budget because I came up with this quarters approach where one quarter is $25, so a quarter of 100, and it's also a quarter of an hour, so 15 minutes. And the best thing about it is that by simply registering, you'll get one free quarter to try it out. So whether it's for a simple question or for something more complex, or that you want to learn how to build applications such as mine, I can help you out. You can ask me anything.
So that is all for my 10 resources on Apex development. Let me know what resources you think should be added to this list. Leave a comment in the comment section below, and maybe we'll come out with an updated list in the future. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Hello everyone, welcome! This video we're going to be talking about all kinds of different things, but largely focused around Oracle database and some of the tools you can get with this database. Or actually, we're going to be focusing on one main tool, which is called Oracle Apex, which allows you to basically build a thin UI on top of your database to work with this database. Now, if you're new to this channel, first off, hello, I'm Caleb. And second, I started this channel focusing on databases. I've broadened, so now I do software development, business development, and all kinds of different things. But when I first started, I was really niche to database design, SQL or SQL, which is the language used to talk to databases. And this is how I established myself on YouTube. And it's been a while since I created the videos at the start. And one of the videos series that I did was on Oracle database. So Oracle has been in my life for a long time. Now, I just said that it was a couple of years, but I'm only in my 20s, so it's been like a fourth of my life. So Oracle has been there, and when I started this Oracle series, I taught people how they could get a free version of the Oracle database. And this was basically a thinned out version or had some limitations in some way. And there's still the Oracle Express edition, which you can go get. It's a thin Oracle database that you can have for free, but there's something new that people might like even better, and that is free Oracle Autonomous Database. So first off, what is the Autonomous Database? Basically, the whole idea behind the Autonomous Database is that you don't have to worry about any of the database management tasks, and that is the selling point of the Autonomous Database. And this is a cloud service, which I love, so the whole idea of having a database as a service is huge for me because in all of my videos, I always have to teach people the whole process of downloading and installing these databases. And honestly, that's a huge pain if you just want to work with a database. Now you can do that in the cloud, and from your applications, you can just connect to that cloud database. It makes my life a lot easier, especially teaching other people to get started. Everything around is just better. So with a cloud database, you can just go launch a database and you're done. You can start using it. And that's taken one step further with the Autonomous Database. So all the extra database administration, you ain't got to worry about none of that stuff. So with originally when the Autonomous Database came out, you could get a 30-day cloud trial, which was nice because that gave you the opportunity to try out the database. But this was not that awesome. You know, you could go to these other cloud providers and use their databases, and you didn't have to worry about paying or running out of time. Well, thankfully, which is awesome to say, Oracle has done this. They have a free tier of the Oracle Autonomous Database, so you should be able to use the database, creating applications that use this database and not have to worry about your time expiring or using up your cloud credits because it's always going to be free. So this is actually a pretty big deal to me because I personally like the Oracle database. One of the key reasons I decided to do that Oracle database series a long time ago was because of the trustworthiness of Oracle and their database software. Now, I do try to stay pretty neutral on claiming which database is the best, and ultimately I just think it comes down to your specific needs and which database meets those needs the best. Personally, I've covered a lot of different databases on this channel, at least 5 of them, and we're probably going to be covering more in the future. So I'm by no means here trying to sell you on a database. Well, for one, it's free, so I'm not really trying to sell you anything. But I am giving you an announcement saying that if you've been using the Oracle database or you've tried the Autonomous Database online, but your time expired, now you can get that for free and you don't have to worry about that time expiration. This is actually something I learned at the Oracle Open World Conference, which I just went to the other week. And that's where I learned a lot of the new Oracle stuff. And one of the big pieces of that was Oracle Apex. Now, you may not have heard of Apex, but it's actually something that comes with the Oracle database. So if you have Oracle database, then you have Apex. And with the Autonomous Database, the free tier of Autonomous Database, you can use Apex to build applications. And the whole idea behind Apex is that it's a low-code tool. Low-code meaning you don't have to code to create the application, but it's not no-code. There is some layer of customization or plugins that you can use to customize your applications to the exact needs you have. But for the general purpose, you don't have to worry about coding to build out an application. And I think the ideal customer for this, and I'm not saying that if you're not this customer, it's not a useful tool, but when I think of this tool, here's what I think of. You have a database, and maybe you're a database guru, and you want to have a new way of looking at this data or working with this data through an application. But you are not necessarily a full-fledged application developer, and you want to basically build out that user interface with as little coding as possible. Personally, that's where I feel Apex fits nicely. You got some database experience, you're working with that, but now you want to add that extra web layer so you can view your data, work with your data through a web application. Now, why am I bringing both of these up? Well, earlier on, you could create an Apex environment that would have a free database, and you could play around with the software to build applications. Now, I'm not here to say that the free tier of the Autonomous Database is the best solution for production applications, but I would say that this is a better environment to put your Apex applications on. You might not get that service level agreement or anything you would get with a full-fledged version of Oracle, but this is a more official location to launch an application. And you can do all of this completely free. Oracle Autonomous is free, Apex is free, and you might have to pay for internet, but other than that, it's pretty much all free. So if you've seen my Oracle Apex tutorial series where I just cover the basics of creating applications, I did this all inside of apex.oracle.com. And then I later moved on to the autonomous database and how to get the 30-day free trial and so forth. But now you don't have to worry about the 30-day free trial because it's just free. So you should be able to follow the whole series on just the autonomous database. So you can find this database at oracle.com/cloud/free, I think. And you can find my video Apex on Autonomous, which will give you the steps necessary to get Apex going on the autonomous database. So this is the biggest takeaway I got from Oracle Open World, probably because I have a horrible attention span. I could have gotten so much more, but there is a compilation video that the Apex team did where they talked about some of the announcements from Oracle Open World 2019, just in case you're watching this in the future. And I'll try to leave a link to that in the description, but they talk about some of the more Apex-oriented updates in 19.2. Just so you guys understand the numbering system, 19's the year, then there's a .1 and a .2. So there's 2 releases each year, and we're upcoming to 19.2, so that's where all those new features are talked about, and they'll be in the new version. Now, if you want to try out those new capabilities, you can go to tryapexnow.com. That's going to give you the 19.2 release, or if you're watching this in the future, it'll probably be whatever the upcoming release is that they're working on. And yeah, I'm just going to leave the hard part of talking about all those new features to the Apex team because I don't want to. So, peace out, guys. Thank you for watching, and please be sure to subscribe if you've enjoyed this content and want to see more from my channel. Bye. Right here. Say hi to the camera. Oh, no, right here. Cuddy. Say hi. No? Okay. And I know what you guys are thinking. In the background there, what is that awesome light source you got there? Wow. This is a beautiful lamp thing that goes on top of your computer, and Ben Q sent me this to give it a try and share with you guys what I thought. So this is actually really cool because it kind of shoots the light like straight down in a line, so you don't get a whole lot of glare on the screen, but your entire workspace is nice and bright. But the real cool part is that you get some customization settings, so you can up the brightness to get it really bright, or you can decrease the brightness, or you can actually press this to turn it on, turn it back off. Wait, no, the other way around. Turn it off, turn it back on. You got a button here which will go into the optimized reading mode, and man, my desk is all dusty. Sorry about that, guys. Yuck. I need to clean that off. And then lastly, you can change the color. So now it's going to go really white to really yellow. So whatever color you guys like, whatever color temperature, you can get exactly what you need. And look, I'm editing the video you're watching inside of the video you're watching. Wow, that's crazy. I have another very similar light that works in a similar fashion, but it's of a different design. But you get some similar configuration settings. And I will leave a link to this bad boy in the description, which will be my Amazon affiliate link. If you go and purchase, then I'll get a couple pennies or something like that, so that would really help me out. So this is my cat. So I have always kind of been this socially awkward person, and it's not really super obvious, or maybe it is, I don't know, from the camera, because right, I'm just talking to a camera in my room, and that's just what I've become used to, right? But when it comes to events and talking to people IRL, I forget how to talk and I forget how to hold conversations. Now, it actually was pretty bad back in high school or middle school when I was younger. Like, I kind of wish I could go back and retry a lot of the friendships and stuff that I had back then, because I was just not good at communicating and not good at socializing. And I've definitely developed those skills. A large part of the reason I've gotten better at that is from work, talking with people. I did a lot of customer service and etc. You know, creating content on YouTube has brought me to events and I begin to socialize with people, and I've just gotten a little bit more comfortable with people. My whole point is I experienced that and I have definitely gotten better, and this video is going to teach you guys how to get the most from networking events or conferences or just talking to people, how to build those relationships and how to leave a conference bettering yourself and other people. So I just got back from Oracle Open World and the Code 1 conference from Oracle, And this was a great opportunity for me to meet a lot of technical people. Now, going to these conferences is great if you want to learn some stuff and go to these sessions, but I personally think the most valuable thing you can get from these conferences is networking, socializing with other people, and learning from the relationships you build from these conferences. So it's really easy to go to a conference and not really talk to anybody, just go to the sessions and then be by yourself. And I've been guilty of that, but I really try to meet at least a couple of people each time I go to a conference. And I'm going to tell you how to make that happen, as well as what kind of things you should want to come home with when you leave a conference. So to give you guys some context on why I've been going to these conferences, well, I've been creating this tutorial series on a low-code development tool that allows you to basically build a thin user interface layer for a database. So on my channel, I do a ton of database stuff and I also do development. And this tool basically allows you to take a database, give it a web user interface without having to know how to code. And this tool is known as Oracle Apex. And being new to this tool this year, I had a lot to learn. So yeah, I could work with the people that know Apex or even work with the Apex team themselves. But one of the ways I thought would be best for me to learn is to actually go to these conferences and attend sessions, as well as meet customers and other people using this tool. So one of my clear goals of these conferences was to learn. But afterwards, I realized that the most valuable thing I received was not the education, but the networking. In fact, some of the people I met, I ended up collaborating with for that series, as well as other videos on my channel. So the very first tip I have to building connections at these conferences is one, get rid of business cards. And I know that sounds completely opposite of what you would think, but the reality is people get business cards and more than likely they're never gonna look at them ever again. I can't tell you how many times I've received a business card. What I'll usually do is I'll take a photo of it with my phone so I have it and then I'll throw it away. But then I usually end up never looking at the photo ever again. Instead, if you meet someone you feel like you guys click and you want to build a connection, connect with them on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is like the business professional Facebook where you can connect with people and you can share stuff about your career and all your achievements or whatever else. This is the more appropriate place to connect with people because once you got that connection, it's permanent. You always have that connection. I mean, assuming one of you doesn't delete the other person, but that connection is made and you will continue to see their updates and they'll continue to see your updates. So that is the better way to build a business relationship with someone than a business card. Think about it this way. If I have a business card and I hand it to you, you'll probably feel that in order for you to use that business card, you must have a request, right? You need something of me, so you send me a text or call me or email me with a request. And yeah, you could just send an email saying you want to chat, but more than likely a business card is to say, hey, if you need any of my services, reach out to me. LinkedIn is different though because it's about relationship building. You don't have to request any services from someone and you've got that connection. You'll continue to see each other's updates and build that relationship. There's plenty of people who have given me business cards and there's never a time where I'm actually going to need their service and I don't really feel comfortable just calling them up, asking them stuff. But if I have them on LinkedIn, I definitely feel comfortable commenting on their posts saying, oh, congratulations on this new promotion, or oh, that's a cool new project you're working on, or whatever it might be. And they do the same for me. Now, maybe it's just because I'm a younger person and that's the new way of doing things. I'm not really sure, but definitely feel more comfortable on LinkedIn connecting with people. And the next thing is don't try to connect with everybody because it's kind of like this. You can go deep or you can go wide and the depth is always more valuable. Build a few relationships and try to make them really deep. So hanging out with just a couple of people throughout an entire conference, which might be 3 to 5 days. And the next big thing is don't worry about what you can get from other people. I feel like if you go to a conference saying, oh, I want to connect with this person because I want them to do this for me and I want this person to do this for me, then you're not really going to get anywhere, right? It should be more about what you can offer these people. So when I start building relationships with people, I ask about what kind of work they do and ask about them versus just talking about, oh, me and my YouTube channel or whatever. And naturally, they're going to ask stuff about me as well. So the relationship starts off good where we're asking each other about the other person instead of telling the other person about ourselves, if that makes any sense at all. Essentially, you go through these conferences and these relationships with the idea that you want to help them and you want to better their lives, not the other way around. And as a result, the other people are going to want to do the same for you. And if you build your relationships this way, then later down the road, when you need something or you have an idea where someone might be able to help, then you can reach out to them and they're going to feel comfortable with that because they know the person you are. But if all you ever do is take, and take, people aren't going to want to give because they know you're just going to want more and more and more. Now, all of this content might seem a little fluffy, but it's actually extremely valuable because I can say that I've received almost every job I've ever had through some form of networking, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, email, or whatever. It's a direct relationship with a person, which then opens up to a larger opportunity. So all these relationships might not seem super valuable now, but they really do open the doors for you as time goes on. And try to maintain those relationships. For example, I met someone in Las Vegas at a conference, and I knew this person lived in Seattle. So when I went to a different conference in Seattle, I let him know I was around and we went out for dinner, had a good time, and continued that relationship. Now, if one day I need a job and I know they're hiring, he could at least help me get an interview, get me some connections in that company, and really help me set myself apart from the rest of the applicants. And no, this doesn't always just apply for getting jobs. It's also just about building your business, right? I do sponsorships for different companies, and I went around to these different booths talking to them about their products, how they are different than the rest of the products, and also sharing a little bit about the content I create on YouTube. And some of the companies were like, yeah, we might be interested. You know, maybe we'll reach out to you if we want some sponsored content. Although the result is not immediate, it's a much more efficient way of getting a long-term successful business because all these companies are gonna know me at a personal level and know that if they reach out to me, I'll probably get back and I'll probably deliver a high quality product, which would be sponsorships, because they met me in person and they realized I wasn't a total scumbag. When you leave a conference, the thing you should expect to get from this is a few connections, 5 people maybe, that you could have a good conversation about business stuff or whatever you guys are working on. And it's almost like a friendship. It's someone you could reach out to in a few months, just ask them how they're doing, and they'd be like, oh, hey, nice hearing from you. How are things? And you can continue to build that relationship. Now, this is going to be exhausting, especially if you were an introvert or a little socially uncomfortable, but it is a good social exercise, right? Like, you're going to get better if you do it more times. So the first one, that might be really hard just to go up to someone and be like, hey, I have a question, or whatever you might ask them. That might be really hard. But the next one's going to be easier, and the next one after that is going to be easier, and it's going to get easier each time. Now, as a disclaimer, I don't think I'm the world's greatest at socializing or anything like that, but I have came a long way just by practicing talking to people and building these relationships. And I think I've developed the skill enough since I've had so much years of customer service that even on my job resumes for technical positions, one of the things on there is I'll say, hey, I can code, but I still act like a human. Right? I'm not one of those tech people that can't hold a conversation and just want to recluse in my room coding for the entire night. Now, some companies are going to want that kind of character, but most of the companies I work with, they want a more customer-facing kind of person. So it's kind of like this thing, if you're hyper-focused on just getting a result, this is what you want, you might miss it. You're not going to build those relationships. If instead you try to see every opportunity as a potential growth opportunity, then you're going to meet new people, build new relationships, and ultimately set you in a better situation in the future by doing this. So a lot of the times building these relationships has a delayed payoff effect. So you might not, immediately grow your business by talking to someone, but that relationship's going to help you down the road. So it's definitely worth it. So if you haven't been to conferences or any kind of technical meetups, I'd highly recommend it. It's a great way to build your skills, and maybe some of the conferences I go to, you guys will be there and you can come say hi and we can practice socializing. Sounds so weird. So thank you guys. Hopefully this video was helpful. A little different than what I normally do, but just something I wanted to talk about how I get the most out of my technical conferences. So thank you guys. Be sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I get a lot of questions here on YouTube about the different ways that someone can learn development. And I have done a lot of videos similar in nature to what I'm going to be talking about in this video, but it never hurts to repeat myself, I guess. So what we're gonna do is we're just going to look at some of the end goals of developers, and then I'm going to share what I think the best, what I think is the best. Oh, why am I saying Beth? Who's Beth? And I'm going to share what I think is the best place to start to get to that destination. Now, I'm working on a new setup and I need to get some extra lights in here, so I apologize about this blinding light here, and then it's kind of like this giant shadow over here, but I'm working on it. Give me some time, okay? I also feel like this would be a good opportunity to share with you guys some of the recent projects I've finished on my channel that you guys can watch, as well as some of the upcoming projects that you can look forward to watching when they come out. So maybe these resources will help you get to your end destination. Now, you always got to remember, it's not about the destination, it is about the journey. So you always have to try to figure out how to learn in a way that's going to encourage you to keep learning, and in a way that's going to bring fun and excitement into your life and not the opposite. So if every day you code, you realize you hate your life, then you're doing something wrong. So I would highly recommend to go down the path that interests you the most and is going to give you the most excitement. Even if that's not necessarily the most popular path or what everyone else is doing, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that can make you more niche than all these other people. Ultimately, I think it's about becoming pretty good at everything and then specializing in one or two things that you become really good at, so you can become very valuable in your field. Just try to be like a successful farmer, outstanding in your field. So I think the first path that I'm going to share with you, and this is really where I started on YouTube and in my development career, is the database path. So you can be this data guru and basically learn a lot of different databases and maybe specialize in one or two of them, like I just said. And when you do this, you're going to be ideal as maybe a database administrator, but you can also be a developer heavy on the back end and the data side of things. So maybe you're going to be developing an API to work with the database or whatever it might be. And I find like that's where maybe my ideal sweet spot is, because I don't just want to be a database administrator. A database administrator is a lot different than a developer. When I work with databases, I don't like to focus on the configuration and setting up permissions and all of this stuff. I much prefer to work with SQL or SQL, and also working with the database through code. So it ultimately depends on what you want to do, but a database administrator job and a software developer focusing in databases, these are two completely different things. This is an opportunity for me to share one of the series I just finished, and this is Oracle Apex, which is a low-code tool. It allows you to basically build a user interface on top of an Oracle database. So I bet you a lot of you guys watching are here because you subscribe through my Oracle database series, and maybe that's your specialty, but you also want to do some user interface work through a web application. And that's where Apex fits in. It allows you to build web applications using that database. It's also an ideal tool if you're building something from scratch and you're not too concerned about connecting with an existing database. In this situation, you can use the free tier of the Oracle database in the cloud, and this will allow you to build web applications that are rather data driven, which I believe is the specialty for Apex. Now, I wish I knew about this tool a while ago when I started with databases, but I can't go change the past. But if you guys are new to databases, I would encourage you to check out that tool. It's pretty fun and it's pretty useful. I actually built a relationship manager application, very simple, but basically a way for me to keep track of the people I reach out to for collaborations. And I did this inside of my Apex tutorial series, so I'd encourage you guys to check that out. I think Apex is a great way to build business tools. Now, if your specialty is building business applications, that can be one tool in your toolbox, but you're probably going to want to know more. So what do I mean by business applications? Well, I'm talking about stuff to manage data, basically CRUD, create, read, update, delete. In other words, a way to work with a database through an application. You might make an application to display data in a nice way, or to automate some business processes, and so forth. If that's the case, what is non-business applications? This is what I would consider social networks, gaming, video editing software, anything like that. Those I don't really consider business applications. Obviously, people are going to use those for business, but it's kind of a different category. So we'll talk about those in a second, but if you're really focusing on business applications, you would also probably want to consider a language like Java or C#, which is a pretty general language, meaning you can do a lot of different things with it. So you can build mobile applications, web applications, desktop applications, and so forth. The next category could be full stack web development. So if you really want to focus on the web, then some of the tools you're going to want to pick up are JavaScript, most definitely. Definitely learn JavaScript. And then HTML and CSS, as well as some basic understanding of HTTP methods and web security and so forth. But I would highly recommend you start with JavaScript. When I started learning website stuff, I was focusing on HTML and CSS, and I put off JavaScript because I was scared. And really, I shouldn't have been scared. I should have just jumped in and enjoyed learning it, because that would have set me apart in my skills a lot from early on. Once you got JavaScript down pretty well, there's some JavaScript web frameworks you can pick up. So there's the obvious ones, which are Angular, React, Vue, and so forth. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there on JavaScript that you can learn. There are also tools to create mobile native applications. So for example, React Native will allow you to create an iPhone app or an Android app that's native to the phone, and it's all programmed in JavaScript. Now, I am a little bit concerned that this is a very saturated market. Yes, the demand is extremely high, so I think you can definitely get a job in this, but I would highly recommend to try to figure out something to specialize in to set yourself apart from the competition. Because like I said in other videos, everybody and their grandmother is a full stack web developer. So you need to figure out something that's going to make yourself different. For me, this is my experience in databases. A lot of web developers kind of neglect this part, which is crazy to me because of all these security issues and data leaks and all of this stuff that can make you fired or shut down a company. You don't want to have that on your shoulder as a web developer. So I would recommend definitely focusing on maybe databases or security to kind of have a niche that you can become the best at. Now, if you want to do web development, but you're not really into all of the coding required to do it like that, there's another route you could go, which would be a content management system. So there's going to be a lot of developers who are going to be like, yeah, that's not real development. But I think that is nonsense, because if you're a developer, you should be focusing on solving business problems. So if I can set up a WordPress website and solve 10 business problems, I can make a ton of money and make their lives a lot easier. You can set up an Upwork profile and make a lot of money doing WordPress development. And you can go pretty deep with this. So if you're a pretty heavy developer, you can do plugin development. You can also do theme development. And there's a lot of different stuff you can do with WordPress. A lot of big companies are powered by WordPress, so it is a huge market, and that's another recommended path for you guys. Now, the last group I would have for you guys would be game development or photo editing or video editing, all of these really demanding applications. And for this, I would recommend C++. And if you're in game development, try looking into different engines. So there's the Unreal Engine. This will allow you to build a game without having to develop everything from scratch. So it's the engine for the game, and then you kind of add the pieces to make it your own game. The reason I recommend C++ is because it's going to give you more control over the computer, and it's still more useful than a language like C. There's not a huge reason to use C today, because you could do pretty much everything in C++, if not everything. So C++ is almost like an upgraded C with a lot more extra stuff. Anyways, any of your heavy-duty applications are probably going to be written in C++. C++ is, in my opinion, a lot harder than some of the other programming languages. It was one of the more challenging languages for me to learn, but I do have videos on it on my channel if you guys want to learn it. And yeah,